Okay. The school board meeting of October 7, 2014 is now called to order. The time is 6 p.m. At this time, we request that all cellular phones and/or pagers be turned off or put in the silent mode. Also, we ask that you please refrain from using flash photography except during the special presentations portion of the meeting. We would like to take this opportunity to remind members of the public of the district's mission, which is to ensure that each student reaches his or her highest personal potential, and the district's vision, which is to be a world-class school system. Today we have with us members of the Board Student Advisory Committee. And so I'm going to ask that you each stand, introduce yourself, and name your school. If you would do that, please.
Why don't you have them line up and come over there, because we won't be able, their name won't be on the record if we don't do that.
Oh, all right. Then if you want to go to the mic. And yes?
Yes.
You're first.
Is it working? Okay. My name is Hannah Lee, and I'm from Ida S. Baker High School.
Thank you.
Megan Wong, Lehigh Senior High School.
Y'all can all get up and go over there.
I'm Yasmin from Easley County.
Christopher Sutherland from Dunbar High School.
Oh, I met him.
Garen Alabre from Dunbar High School. Morgan LaRosa from Fort Myers High School.
Hunter Sperry from Mariner High School.
Carson Young from Estero High School. Wagner Tuso, Cape Coral High School.
Marissa Mazza, South Fort Myers High School.
Natalie Scarborough, Lee Virtual School.
Hunter Belcher, Fort Myers High School.
Miguel Hernandez, Ida Baker High School.
Jacob Ryan, North Fort Myers High School.
Tommy Short, Cypress Lake High School. Stephen Angulo, Island Coast High School.
Thank you very much. We are really pleased to have you all here. This evening's agenda includes the invocation, the presentation of colors and Pledge of Allegiance, 1 recognition, 3 resolutions, 1 acknowledgement, 1 special presentation to the board, which is good cause. Dr. Graham, please provide an explanation for the good cause item.
The first one is to work with the board to elect a chair and a vice chair.
Correct. As presiding officer, I find there is good cause to add this item to the agenda. Then public comment, consent action items, which include 2 items under executive services, 4 items under business and finance, 8 items under operations, 7 items under teaching and learning, 1 item under unfinished business tabled items, 7 superintendent's recommendations, 3 of which are good cause. Dr. Graham, please provide an explanation for these 3 items.
The first 2 are collective bargaining agreements that one is a collective bargaining agreement that's been ratified, and then another schedule of employees about their pay increase. And the third is to authorize the new chair to sign appropriate documents.
Thank you. As presiding officer, I find there is good cause to add these items to the agenda. And 4 items under other business. Board members, is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Dozier, seconded by Mrs. Fisher. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0. Ms. Fisher will deliver the invocation, after which Ms. Dozier will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. After the special presentations portion of the agenda, a brief recess will be called to allow those of you who wish to depart an opportunity to do so. Please rise for the invocation.
Father, as we gather here this evening, we ask your blessings on all here present. We thank you for this opportunity to come together to represent our community, to advocate for students and staff, and to partner with parents in the education of their children. We ask that you guide us in leading the district and grant us the wisdom and understanding necessary to make decisions which will benefit all. We remember our colleague, Tom Scott, who was a true public servant, devoted to family, and passionate for the success of children through family involvement. He brought to us common sense, business insight, and a true commitment to make the Lee County community a better place. He will be missed. Please join me in a moment of silence to honor his memory. Thank you. Thank you. At this time, I would like to welcome Colonel Robinson, Senior Army Instructor at Fort Myers High School. Colonel Robinson will introduce the cadet presenting the colors this evening. Colonel Robinson retired after 29 years of military service with the United States Army National Guard. He served in various assignments during his career, including assignment as an aviation battalion and group commander. He is a veteran of Operation Enduring Freedom. This is Colonel Robinson's third year as a JROTC instructor in our school district. Welcome.
Thank you, ma'am. The national colors this evening will be presented by Cadet Lieutenant Colonel Civialina Altanor. She's a Green Wave senior and hopes to attend the University of South Florida next fall. She has focused on AP classes and dual enrollment this year. Ms. Altanor holds a 4.5 weighted GPA. She has also played school basketball, soccer, she runs track, and excels on the Green Wave Raider team. Challenges motivate and inspire her to be even better. Ms. Altanor wishes to earn her commission through the ROTC program at the University of South Florida and study physical therapy, which she wishes to practice as an Army officer. Her long-term goals are to provide or to give back to her community by operating a youth recreational facility and gymnasium.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated.
Jeannie, you may not be. Oh, I know, but I'm going to take this with us. So I'll have the order.
I would like to ask Mrs. Mickey Stroh, Ms. Lisa McCartney, and Ms. Erin Atkinson to please join me at the lectern. Ms. Stroh is the district's coordinator for social studies, fine arts, character education, and AVID. Ms. McCartney is the art teacher at Lehigh Senior High School, and Ms. Atkinson is the 12th grade student at Lehigh Senior High School. The board will recognize a student each month during the school year as the winner of the Character Education Digital Design Competition. The winner for the month of October is Erin Atkinson. The school board and superintendent are pleased to congratulate you for your creative design and supporting character education in our schools. Thank you. Oh, no, okay.
I just want to take a moment to thank the schools for participating, for the board for taking this moment to recognize the students and the importance of character education in the classroom, and the foundation for supporting the schools and providing the opportunity as well. Thank you.
At this time, I would like to invite Ms. Lori Brooks, Ms. Mary Lynn Rodriguez, and Ms. April Thompson to join me at the lectern. Ms. Brooks is the Assistant Director, School Counseling Services. Ms. Rodriguez is the Coordinator for School Counseling Services, and Ms. Thompson is a Prevention Specialist for Student Services. Childhood bullying is a significant problem nationwide. It can cause school absenteeism, poor academic performance, mental and physical stress, loss of self-esteem, increased anxiety, and depression. Young people say that bullying is one of the biggest problems they face. In fact, 52% of students report seeing bullying at least once a week. This negatively affects the victims, the bullies, and those who witness bullying, as well as the school environment as a whole. The entire month of October has been set aside to raise awareness of this problem and to encourage communities to work together to reduce the impact of bullying on all children, including those with disabilities. It has been shown that when adults and children unite to reduce bullying, communities will see safer school environments with students achieving at their highest potential. In an effort to raise awareness of and to reduce the impact of bullying on the children of our community, I move to adopt the resolution proclaiming October 2014 as National Bullying Prevention Month. Thank you very much. And we have a resolution, and I'll have to present this to Ms. Brooks.
Thank you so much.
And would you like to say something? I'm
sure.
See a bully stamp and bully bracelet.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. To put my bracelet on.
Board members and Dr. Graham and Ms. Fisher, thank you for recognizing the importance of National Bully Prevention Month. At some point in our lives, each of us has been a target, a bystander, and yes, we have likely even bullied others at times, often without realizing we have done so. This is the reason that training our children in appropriate social skills is a critical element in education, and it involves all stakeholders: teachers, support staff, board members, administrators, parents, students, and the community. And there are more stakeholders out there. It's a community effort. We also would like to thank Suncoast Credit Union Foundation because they provide the school district with generous grant funds to fund our talented bully prevention specialist, April Thompson, who's here this evening. And her efforts in the district have been outstanding in the last 2.5 years that she's been here. Once again, thank you for your commitment to bully prevention in the school district and for supporting the mission of training children's hearts while we educate their mind. Thank you.
I would like to invite Mr. Sonny Stilmacki to join me here at the lectern. Mr. Stilmacki is the Director of Food and Nutritional Services here in the district. Welcome. The National School Lunch Program began in 1946 with the purpose of improving the nutritional status of American children and promoting the domestic use of surplus commodities. In 1962, National School Lunch Week was established by a proclamation from President Kennedy, and the week has been observed ever since to emphasize the critical role that school nutrition programs play in the lives of America's children. The theme of this year's observance is Get in the Game with School Lunch. Even though 1 week each year may be the official set-aside time to emphasize the importance of proper nutrition, the school district's Food and Nutritional Services Department works each and every day to provide meals that nourish our children's bodies and enhance their readiness to learn and to succeed in school. Madam Chair, I would like to move for adoption the resolution proclaiming October the 13th through the 17th, 2014, as National Lunch School Week. Aye. I would at this time like to present a resolution to Mr. Stilmacky and ask him if he would like to say a few words.
Yes, please.
All righty. Have it up.
Good evening, board members and Dr. Graham. Thank you, board members, for proclaiming the week of October 13th through 17th as National School Lunch Week. Ms. Dozier, we also have some of our staff here this evening that wanted to also join us in accepting this resolution, and if they could please join us now. As Ms. Dozier indicated, the mission of the Food and Nutrition Services Department is to provide meals that nourish our students and enhance their readiness to learn. We accomplish this mission daily by providing over 70,000 well-balanced, nutritious meals with the assistance of approximately 675 dedicated food service workers, assistant managers, managers, cafeteria aides, supervisors, warehouse staff, and clerical staff. Next week, the theme of the National School Lunch Week is to get in the game with school lunch. And many of our school cafeterias will be having special promotions that will encourage students to eat a healthy meal that they will enjoy and at the same time enhance their readiness to learn. Although the National School Lunch Week is only celebrated 1 week of the year, it is my honor to work with all these individuals every week of the year as they have a passion for making sure that all of our students have the opportunity to receive a meal that they can enjoy. And for your information, our staff does this at a pace of over 12 million meals a year. In behalf of all our dedicated staff, we thank you for your continued support of our programs. With us today to accept this resolution are Lauren Couchois, she is our wellness coordinator. Nellie Cepeda, she is one of our field managers for school operations. Robin Walker, she is the assistant manager at Diplomat Elementary Middle. Wendy Lum, she is the assistant manager at North Fort Myers High School. Cindy Mateo, she is the manager at North Fort Myers High School. And Jim Hill, he is one of our supervisors for school operations. Thank you very much.
I'd like to invite Mr. What was your name again? Smith. Mr. Robert Morgan, the Executive Director of Transportation, and the Assistant Director, Roger Lloyd, and Miss Ellen Lucas, to join me at the lectern. Bob Day. And the Union Vice President, Bob Day. I understand that we have several senior bus operators and bus attendants present this evening. I'd like them to join me as well. Oh, yes. Now, before I actually read this, I'm actually going to say a couple of my own personal words, improvise a little bit. I've said this time and time again. Our bus operators carry the most precious cargo this district has. They have such an important job. They're the first school district employee that our kids see, and they are the last. So it is my honor to read this today. National School Bus Safety Week, established in the early 1990s, is observed during the third week of October each year. It is an effective, continued public education program designed to promote school bus safety. This year's theme is, "At my bus stop, you stop," which reminds everyone to remain alert and pay attention when school buses are present. Our school transportation personnel accomplish one of the most important jobs in the education system, that of transportation more than 50,000 students. Children to school ready to learn and back home. Safety each and every day. This district recognizes the importance of the school bus safety training and awareness, not only for our transportation personnel, but for our students, teachers, support staff, and administrators, parents, community members, and my kids. In recognition of the school district's transportation personnel and to promote school bus safety awareness, I move for the adoption of the resolution proclaiming October 20 and 24th, 2014 as National School Bus Safety Week. Congratulations.
$750 buses, running about 1,500 runs, stopping traffic 30,000 times a day, 1,200 employees in the transportation department. We're proud of what we do, the support given to us from the board, and can't say enough how important school bus safety is. Daylight savings coming next week. It's going to be dark again in the morning. Every day we get through this, every day we get through without someone being hurt is just a miracle, the way our traffic system is. I'd like to acknowledge Miss Fatima Green. Fatima. She's 36 years as a bus operator. And Janice Scanlon has 30 years as a bus attendant and approximately 600 additional years of service. They were nice enough to come down here to be recognized tonight. Thank you, Roger, for coming. Ellen Lucas had a family emergency, and Mr. Bob Day was nice enough to step in. So thank all of you for what you do.
Thank you.
We'll now call a recess for anyone who would like to leave after the presentations. The student that we had hoped to have sitting with us on the dais this evening is not here, so we're going to just hold that word respect to the next board meeting. Dr. Graham, you have a recommendation.
Yes, the board needs to proceed with election of the school board chair to fill the present vacancy. I will act as chair and preside over this portion of the meeting until a chair is elected. So at this time, yes, ma'am.
I would like to nominate Ms. Morgan. She has been the vice chair, and she's basically been carrying on the duties as chair, so I would like to nominate her for this position at this time.
I'll second.
Maybe the microphones aren't turned on loud enough. Okay, I would like to make a motion. It wasn't on, thank you. I would like to make a motion that we, to nominate Ms. Morgan for chair. She has served as the acting chair for several board meetings, and until we reorganize, I think this would be a seamless transition. Thank you.
Are there any other nominations? We'll close the nominations, and Kathleen Morgan will be the chair until the reorganization meeting. Yes, sir.
I do have a question on that, though, because we have a chair now. Do we have to have a vice chair then?
That's coming.
Okay. Just wanted to clarify.
We need to vote officially on the nomination for Ms. Morgan. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. There's no requirement to have a vice chair, but we're going to take nominations should the board choose to have one. Mr. Armstrong?
Sure. I'd like to nominate Ms. Dozier as vice chair.
Well, I want to thank you for that, but I know that Mrs. Fisher has served as in fact, I was going to nominate you for the vice chair position. I am in the middle of a lot of legislative stuff, and I would like to know if you would be willing to accept, but I certainly appreciate your nomination. You would be willing to accept that?
Yes, I will accept it. Thank you.
I'll second it.
We'll close the nominations. We need to, since Ms. Dozier has declined, we need to vote on Ms. Fisher. All those in favor?
Aye.
Ms. Fisher is the vice chair. And now I'm most happy to turn it back over to Mrs. Morgan.
Thank you all for the expression of confidence. I do appreciate it. Now it's time for public comment. Mr. Martin, would you please address the agenda item of public comment?
School board policy provides the opportunity at this point in the meeting to address the board concerning any matter on this meeting's agenda or any other matter relevant to the operation of the school district. If you completed a card and submitted that to me before the meeting began, you'll be called in the order of the card submitted. If you did not submit a card but still wish to address the school board this evening, the school board chair, Ms. Morgan, will provide you an opportunity in a moment to express that desire. The rules concerning public comment are posted at the back of the room and include the requirement that any speaker who wishes to address the school board to endorse the purchase of a product or a service in which that speaker has a personal interest. The speaker must reveal that interest before making comment to the board. The school board does not respond during public comment time to remarks made by speakers. At the conclusion of public comment time, the school board chair may address concerns raised by speakers or may assign responsibility to the superintendent to do so. School board policy prohibits booing, hissing, clapping, shouting, cursing, or disrespectful comments in response to comments made by school board members or public speakers. Additionally, presenters are required to confine their remarks to educationally relevant issues. Attacks on individuals and abusive comments will not be allowed. An individual who violates these rules or is otherwise disruptive may be warned by the chairperson. A continued disruption or violation of the rules may lead to removal from the meeting. Ms. Morgan, I have 15 cards this evening.
Is there anyone on the right side of the auditorium who did not fill out a card who wishes to speak? Anyone on the left side? I see Mr. Fox and Jerry Ware. Mr. Martin, you may call the first speaker.
The time allowed per speaker with 17 speakers is 3 minutes. Due to the large number of speakers, I will call the speakers in groups of 5. When I call your name the first time, please proceed to one of the 2 lecterns. When I call your name the second time, please begin your comments. The first 5 speakers are Marvin Getz, Yepram Dervaharian, Tess Brennan, Kevin Regal, and Lisa Bevan. Mr. Getz.
Good evening, board members and our superintendent. I'm here tonight to address the board regarding salary for substitutes. Once again, this budget that was passed does not include any raise for substitute teachers. The last raise was in the year 2008. Each year when I have presented it, I have sort of run on the fact that I've been told there's never enough money. I must remind the board that we are not a union, we are an association. We do not bargain collectively because we are not a union. We depend on you, the members of the board and the administration, to look at our concerns and to provide fair and equal treatment. When the budget is prepared, or being prepared, who considers the district substitutes? Who speaks for us? No one, it appears. We constantly examine and compare us to surrounding comparative districts, and that's what we seem to use. But I feel that comparators are no longer a sufficient way to judge your substitute teachers. I notice on the board's agenda for this evening is superintendent's recommendations 2 and 3. Both include salary. Well, if there's no salary increase for substitutes and there's no money for substitutes, I'd like to know how these two items get on the agenda, since all the money comes out of the same place. Thank you.
Mr. Verhanian?
Yep, from Dervahanian, Lehigh Acres. Comments on Common Core. The commissioners from the state down, first of all, we had Common Core changed to Florida Standards. Same thing, different name. Second thing, we had a commissioner, Tony Bennett, who fudged scores on tests, and we hired this guy. He had to resign. Our third commissioner, Pam Stewart, understanding she hasn't taught a class since the 80s. I have no confidence in these people at Tallahassee are up there telling us down here what to do. I hope this board will stand up for our students and not listen to Tallahassee and the federal government, because they're picking bad people. Last thing I want to say is the taxes for new schools. I hope that we sell some properties to get money, take over old buildings like what they did with the Kmarts, do whatever we can to save some money. My taxes have gone up, property taxes. My fire board wants more money. Everybody wants more money. So be very careful on what you do with building schools. I'm from Detroit. They're closing all kinds of schools. My high school, Cooley High School, is a great, beautiful school with pillars, arches, beautiful. They won't tear it down, but it's empty. Beautiful school. Mackenzie High School, 3 stories, they tore down. Cass Tech, they tore down. Commerce High School, curriculum school, they tore down. A lot of schools turned. That's just the west side. East side, I don't know. So be careful on what you build, because you don't know if we're going to have hurricanes, people leave, the economy turns bad again, and you're going to have empty buildings. So be prudent on how you spend the money. Thank you.
Tess Brennan?
Tess Brennan, Fort Myers. I want to share with you a testimonial from a friend of mine. After months of studying, I was seriously sleep deprived. My stress level was through the roof. My blood pressure had skyrocketed. All of this was coming to a head at the time I needed to be in the top form the most. The anxiety emanated from everyone gathered in the room. It was suffocating. We were allowed no food or water during the exam. Any medications we might need had to be approved. By the time we were dismissed for lunch at midday, we were all completely depleted emotionally and physically. At the end of day 1, I didn't want to talk to anyone. I didn't want to review anything. I didn't want to eat. All I could think of was how much I wanted to sleep. I was incredibly drained. At the end of day 2, after repeating the craziness of the day before, there was no better feeling than being freed from what could only be described as the depths of hell. I sat down in a chair to try and watch a movie, but within minutes, the muscles in my arms and legs began to ache. I had no idea how much my body had tightened up over the course of the last few months. There are 2 parts to this exam. Unfortunately, I didn't pass both parts. Sadly, I missed part 2 by 1 question. Yep, really 1 question. And I will be doing it all over again in February of 2015. I am thankful I don't have to sit through 2 full days of testing again, but I am incredibly frustrated. I can't help believe that it was the stress and anxiety of the testing environment and the experience that caused me to fail. It's a recipe for disaster. This testimonial is from a 43-year-old friend who was taking the floor bar exam, which is 3 hours less than what we've been testing our 9 and 10-year-olds. I've been told our FCAT was 3 hours per day in a total of 5 days. That is if there were no provisions for a student. If we have a student with special needs, these tests could last even longer. I've emailed the proper channels to get a reply on how long the testing will take for our 3rd grade students. It was over 2 weeks ago. I still have no reply. I've seen where the part could take around 10 hours to administer, and I've heard rumors that the air will take 180 minutes for each section, but we don't know what a section is since we can't get an answer. Are we willing to just leave the door open to the number of hours we'll test our children? Really? Our 3rd grade students are subjected to more hours of high-stakes testing than a student trying to get into med school, and they request the test and pay for it. I'm asking you please to look at opting our students out of the FSA and not abusing our students to these high-stake tests. Thank you.
Kevin Riegel.
All right, thank you. First off, I wanted to pass along my condolences to the family of Mr. Tom Scott. I'd like to say thank you for his service and dedication to the Lee County community and to the school district. It is a hard and difficult job to be a public servant, and I am thankful for all that Tom Scott stood for and what he did. Thank you very much. Now, I wanted to bring up a couple of issues. I issued a public records request around a month ago, and public records that are housed by the Lee County School District and are relevant to school district related materials. After all, what is a public records request when you look through a personnel file or look through school district materials? It is relevant to school district concerns. I noticed some things, and it was of student safety issues, which is what I attempted to bring up last time. And those of you who were here at the meeting saw my microphone was cut off. Okay? During that meeting, Keith Martin said, "Mr. Riegel, you are cautioned that your comments need to address educational relevant issues and that attacks on individuals will not be tolerated." I couldn't even show my relevant issues that I needed to bring forward that are of school and district concern. Madam Chair, Kathleen Morgan, you humiliated me, or I should say I felt humiliated and bullied in front of everybody when you stopped and said, "I am going to ask that if you proceed, that you are escorted from the boardroom." You authorized your position to put me in a subordinate position, and I felt bullied. As a result, I am in the process of filing a Sunshine Law violation as a result of the last meeting. You have taken away my First Amendment rights. During the meeting, I needed to bring up to you the fact that an individual, and this is a person who has been around kids, it looks like has stated that he was never arrested, when in fact I found otherwise. You did not let me bring that information forward. Is that not a concern to you, that one of your high-ranking individuals, I found paperwork that states, "Have you ever been arrested?" And the answer was no, when I have here that he was released on his own recognizance 5 days later after being arrested for battery and domestic violence? How is that not a relevant issue that you are unwilling to take up and that you had to shut my microphone down for? I would like to hear some answers, and I have exhibits A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H,
your time is
I.
up. Thank you.
Your time's up, sir. Speakers 6 through 10. Yes, ma'am. We'll be with you in just a second. Speakers, I know what number you are. Speakers 6 through 10, stay right there. Ma'am.
Just relax.
Be
You're
patient.
okay. Stand
Stay right there.
Stay there.
Speakers 6 through 10 are Tara Jenner, Sierra Susko, Kristen Vuknik, Mary Orthodoxoy, Chris Quackenbush. Speaker number 5 is Lisa Bevan. You may proceed.
I'd like to pay my respects for the board member who is no longer with us. The gentleman's name is Scott. The flags are at half-staff, but yet his chair is not there and his name's not there. I think something needs to be addressed because certain things have been said at this meeting and the respect word was actually pulled. I used to be a teacher in this district, and one of my chief things to do was to teach character education. And respect is a word that needs to be addressed, and you guys pulled it, and you just said, well, we'll reserve it for the next meeting. So I'm actually making my own motion as a member of public that's the character education word, respect, and you guys need to put that into your minutes, because from what I heard out here, because I've got a problem hearing because, again, I lost my job because something hit me on the head and I got removed, okay? So I'm rambling a little bit, but I'm also filing a sunshine violation too, just to back up Mr. Regal, because he was shut down and he didn't mention the person's name, but the gentleman's name is Spyro. And
Okay, we're not going to have...
Okay, we're not going to have personal attacks, but
Correct.
I'm here to say that I'm filing one too. Thank you.
Tara Jenner.
Good evening. Based on the organizational chart, Mr. Martin, you're the attorney to the school board, yet the appearance, whether it's deserved or not, is that you work directly at the bidding of the superintendent and that it's Dr. Graham's agenda that you further with your legal interpretations. I encourage you today, as a fellow attorney, to revisit your charter and the fact that your fiduciary duty lies not with the superintendent, but with the school board, and more importantly, the people that the school board serves. I implore you to tackle your job in a positive way, looking not to why something can't be done, but instead using your gifts, your talents, and your legal acumen to find a way within the confines of the law to accomplish what the board is trying to do at the behest of the people. Look to the U.S. and the state constitutions for your answers, and do not allow yourself or us to be limited by legislation which may be at odds with the very laws that all of you have sworn to uphold, not the state laws, but the constitutions. And school board members, I remind you that Mr. Martin is your counsel, not Dr. Graham's. Please stop deferring to her or delegating to her. Would I even go so far as to say abdicating your authority to her? Use your attorney and gain control, if need be, over him. Assert your rights and those of the people that you have elected. And finally, Superintendent Graham, I have perceived you to be insubordinate to the board and undermine their credibility in these chambers, in the media, in the minds of the community, and with your teachers and principals in this very district with whom I've spoken. Though maybe not intended, you come across as condescending and irritated by the very people you serve, and more interested in tests than in the students that they're evaluating. You all have a chance to redeem yourself and be part of a change in this country that will occur with you or without you. Embrace the fact that the people of this great nation are not limited and will not be limited or boxed in by cookie-cutter education and testing. Lead the return to American exceptionalism in the classroom and in the world. Do not settle for our students being competitive on a global community. Strive for them to be the leaders. Thank you.
Sierra Susko.
It is a travesty that Mr. Armstrong's motion about instructing on 9/11 even needed to be made at the last meeting. I encourage you not only to mandate time to teach students in all classes about 9/11, but that you make an effort to invite guest speakers with firsthand experience to share their stories and also to show footage of this terrorist attack on our soil. It was 57 a.m. on September 11th, and I was almost 2 years old when Flight 11 crashed into the North Tower of the World Trade Center. 7 minutes later, Flight 175 smashed into the South Tower. 34 minutes passed, and then Flight 77 took out part of the Pentagon. 1 hour and 4 minutes after these first terrorist attacks, Flight 93 went down in a field near Shanksville, Pennsylvania, avoiding an additional target and saving untold innocent lives. Is it too much to ask for at least 1 second of instruction for each life lost, which is less time than it took for the entire event? There were 2,977 innocents who perished. That's approximately 50 minutes, or a class period. Several years ago, my mom took me and my little brother to see the traveling Vietnam Memorial Wall in Bonita. We spent 3 days preparing, and on our way there, Mom cautioned us to stay near her because she didn't want us to get lost in the sea of people she thought would be there. When we arrived, we thought we were at the wrong place because there wasn't a single yellow bus in sight. It turns out no school kids had been there all week. Our preparation was nothing compared with the education we received on site because the veterans flocked to us, starved to share their stories and make sure that the lessons learned, both good and the bad, were passed on to the younger generation. Mom asked why no schools had sent children to experience this amazing piece of history and found out that it was not on the FCAT, and therefore didn't justify the time or expense of a field trip. As Edmund Burke was noted to say, those who don't know history are doomed to repeat it. Please don't make this mistake and fail to teach a valuable lesson in our history, because it's not on some standardized test. And if you know of the 7 deadly sins, there's one more. Her name is ignorance. Don't let her take control.
Kristen Vuknik. Kristen Vuknik.
Good evening. I wanted to share a few things that have come to my attention recently and are very disturbing. For starters, recess is still an issue in some of our schools. Trafalgar and Edison Park parents have stated their children are not getting the 15 minutes recess a day. Next, I want to discuss our local teachers. We are speaking about Anti-Bullying Week, Anti-Bullying Month. However, our local teachers are being bullied. I have been informed that at the end of a recent teachers meeting, teachers were told not to comment or associate with the opt-out folks, that it is a conflict of their interest and all they needed to worry about is how much state funding the schools will lose. Really? How about doing what's best for our children and allowing our teachers to have a voice and not feel threatened to speak on what they believe is right for our children? Why are our teachers afraid to speak up? Who is threatening our teachers? Why is this being allowed? I will use the rest of my time to share with you comments from Lee County teachers who wish to remain anonymous because they fear losing their jobs if they speak up. First letter. Hello, I'm a teacher in Lee County. I thank you for all you are doing, and I'm so glad that someone is finally listening. I'm writing you concerning the motion passed by the board about district testing. In prior years, we used weekly reading and math tests that were a part of curriculum. They were considered district tests. They went right along with what we were teaching in class. However, last year, we got new curriculum. They have tests as well, but the district decided we needed to create our own. I was so happy the board gave us teachers the authority to decide when and how to test. I thought 2 weeks ago's decision we would be able to create our own tests. If we do, we've been told that if we create our own tests, we still have to give the same number of tests as the district tests. So how is that going with what the school board voted on? I thought the whole point of the motion was we were testing way too much. We were also told that if the teachers created our own test, these tests needed to be entered into the district tracking computer program, which none of the teachers have been trained to use. We still have a lot of questions and no answers. I feel coerced into using district tests, which I find inappropriate, lengthy, not matching up to what I'm teaching in class. I just want to do what's best and fair for my students. Thank you for hearing my voice and your support. To keep going, letter 2. Teachers do seem to remain quiet because of fear of losing their jobs. It's really sad. I've heard many teachers express happiness with having the testing calendar wiped clean, but yet we received a large stack of tests 2 days later for us to give our students within a 2 to 3 day period. So have the tests gone away? No. What's frustrating is now teachers are being told to create their own tests. And if we do want to use, or we can use the previously district state mandated tests. And we believe that they are very developmentally inappropriate, way too long, and riddled with error. There is mandates that go along with that. All of these tests have to be.
Thank you, Ms. Wickman. Your time's up. Before we proceed, I would please ask the public to refrain from making any type of sounds in response to comments by speakers. It's important that the school board be able to focus on the comments from speakers, they not be distracted. The board values each speaker's comments. Please do not disrupt. Mary Orthodoxoi.
My name is Mary Orthodoxo. I'm from Cape Coral. I'm a grandmother and a mother in the Lee County School District. I am sickened at heart tonight. 2 weeks ago, this board made a decision. Unfortunately, we have a superintendent that is undermining your decision and your direction. I have spoken to principals and I've spoken to teachers. The word came down as business as usual. That's insubordination, a derelict of duty, and I am demanding tonight, on behalf of every parent in Lee County, Ms. Graham be terminated without a severance pay.
Relinquish you of all your duties.
Tonight.
Speakers 11 through 15 are Larry Burns, Anthony Tochi, Bob Valenta, Angela Salander, and Lori Fahey. Chris Quackenbush.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm Chris Quackenbush from Fort Myers. We have a website, stopcommoncorefl.com, and I invite everyone to come and see why Common Core is bullying our children. And it's National Bullying Month here, and Mary talked about bullying. And we've heard some more talk about bullying, but I also want to point out that our children are being bullied. Just like she said in her testimony, that it's child abuse to give as many tests for so long a period of time that are not used directly in their education furtherance. It's important that we address this, and we address it firmly, not just going to put it on a legislative agenda that may be addressed by some legislator who knows nothing about schools this coming legislative season. We have to really take action because our job is to protect our children. Now, I have two other concerns. That we are not following the law in very important ways. SB 864 is a new textbook law that was passed last July. In it, it says that the school board is now responsible for choosing and reviewing textbooks and getting them out of our schools. I brought this to the attention of our superintendent and Christy Coots and anyone else who would hear me. I sent the information to our board numerous occasions that the textbook that we are using for AP US History is in violation of the law. It does not follow all the things that Florida requires in Florida Statute 1003.42 of our school books. It has absolutely no source citings. It depicts Ronald Reagan as a liar. It depicts Washington as an elitist with the rags of royalty. This is not how I want my children to be taught, nor any of us in here want our children to be taught. I want this out of our schools, and I called this to the attention of the school district before school began with urgency, and I was promised answers within 2 weeks. I still have no answers, and we have been putting off and putting off and putting off appointments so that we can get the answers that we sought. We need to know who approved this book, how many students are taking it, why haven't they been given a notice that this is inflammatory material that does not qualify for Florida law. We need to ask the College Board for a refund of our money, and we need to make sure that we are in charge. We paid for these books. Us in the class, in the room here, we paid with our tax dollars for this pollution to be fed to our children. And this brainwashing is going to be very difficult to get out of their minds once they've left school. This could be their last one. Now, I have another concern, and that is HB 7009, and that was to be doing load testing and confirmation by an independent source, verification by independent sources, that our computers are in shape for all the testing that we have to do here. I've gotten back from a FOIA request, Freedom of Information Act request.
Thank you, Ms. Quackenbush. Your time is up, ma'am. Larry Burns.
Board members, Superintendent Graham, appreciate the opportunity to make a few comments about testing and assessment. Basic position I take is to test or not to test is not the question. The real question is, how do we measure the right things right? Without measuring using hard factual data that is reliable and valid, there's simply no way to know the effectiveness of teachers, the curriculum, the materials, professional development, and school district leadership. I applaud the board and the superintendent for their vision in becoming a world-class school district. Are we there yet? If not, are we headed in the right direction? How do we know? How do we prove to all the stakeholders that we have met our target? The world is more complex today, so you must measure the right things right and compare your results, that is benchmarking, with other Florida districts, the region, the nation, and yes, even other countries. The goal is to secure actionable information. You might think about using Dr. W. Edwards Deming's theory applied to education. He believed that if a district wanted to test students' knowledge, the instructional process, and the curriculum, they could select a random sample of students, give them a standardized year-end test, and use the results to analyze student performance and effectiveness. To repeat, to test or not to test is not the question. The question is, how do we measure the right things right?
Anthony Toshi.
Members, Dr. Graham, fellow community members. I'm joined tonight by my co-teaching partner, Nicole Gully, and fifth grade co-teaching team, Michelina Edwards and Suzanne Tachi. We're proud to share with you the success that we are celebrating at Patriot Elementary School. We've improved our school grade from a C to an A in just one school year. We attribute most of this to the fact that we are a student-centered learning community that is also data-driven. We use data from formative assessments such as thinking maps and local district assessments in order to help our students learn and grow, all the while downplaying the inherent pressures that can arise by harping on standardized testing. Furthermore, we utilize baseline and mid-year assessments to drive standards-based individualized instruction daily during intensive reteaching or enrichment for all students. This data helps us to analyze and identify student and teacher strengths in order to optimize team planning and teaching. Thank you for this opportunity to share our success with you, and we look forward to another year of making a positive impact in Lee County schools.
Thank you.
Bob Valenta.
Thank you. The top listed consortium goal is to increase on a phased-in basis the average per student funding to ensure that Florida is in the top half of the states and can provide a world-class education to enable its students to compete and excel in the global marketplace. At the recent budget meeting, these numbers were used. $1,293,590,950 for 88,348 students. That's nearly $15,000 per student per year. Private school is $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 per year. Public school costs 3 times as much as the better schools and is nowhere near as good as the lowest private schools. And you have the audacity to make it your goal to increase the cost per student? Because after all, if you have a problem, God knows throwing money at it is always the answer. Another stated goal was to fund the infrastructure cost and acquisition of computers technology for the expansion of digital instruction and mandated testing. If the goal of the consortium is to halt high-stakes mandated testing, why would we need to make a resolution to fund it? Constitutional authority. At the consortium, you made it the primary goal to preserve the constitutional authority of the school boards. But when you give a directive to Mrs. Graham, she does everything she can to slight you in every way and at every turn. But you do nothing to rein in her poor conduct. She is still driving fear into the hearts of principals and teachers by lying to them, telling them they have to pick their tests from a list of a few district-approved tests. That is not what the vote was at the last meeting. Why do we have a school board? Why do we have votes? Why don't we just get Mrs. Graham her crown and scepter and be done with it? Clearly she thinks she runs this board. One suggestion I have for this board is to place the student representative, that's not here today, at the center of the board, at the center of the dais. After all, the central concern of education should always be the student. Then we should have the board members surrounding him or her, and finally have Mr. Martin on this side and Mrs. Graham to the far left. Thank you. Hashtag terminate Nancy Graham with cause.
Angela Salander.
Hi, I'm Angela Salander from Cape Coral. I'm actually going to start out today with a 4th grade math lesson. I don't know if you guys can see this, but I'll show everybody. If you were asked what 5 times 64 is, it's 320, and chances are you would do it like this. This is what my son did on his homework. This is wrong, okay? Explain to a 4th grader why this is wrong. And now he tells me, Mom, I have an application. I say, yes, you do. He said, well, why am I wrong? This is what I have to tell him, because this is the way they want you to do it. This way. This way has taken us 2 hours to do one math page a night. After tears from mostly me, because he doesn't want to do it, he doesn't understand it. He understands it in the classroom, but 4 hours later when he gets off that school bus, it's gone. We're talking about a kid who had 89, who's now got a 73. That quick. I have to try and explain to him, this is the way you want to do it. They want you to do it. I don't know why they want you to do it this way. You have to do it this way. If you don't do it that way, you get marked wrong. It's kind of hard to explain that to a child. And then it's just very frustrating. I have reached out to my teacher. I am a lucky one. I have a teacher, and I have a principal, and I also have a math coach in my son's school. We are working with him. They are working with me. They've been very patient. I email them, talk to them probably at least once a week. Because now, as of this Monday, I got the I don't want to go to school speech. And I say, you need to get up, you need to go to school, and you need to learn what you need to learn, and you need to pass. I told them we're working on it. Parents are uniting. We're trying to help the kids. We have to support our teachers. We have to support our principals. We have to support our children. As far as this FSA, I cannot do it to my kid. I can't even deal with the homework for 2 hours a night. That I was given permission to do a half an hour. You don't get it done, write a note, and we'll work with your child. Some parents don't know they have that option. I went to a birthday party this weekend. There were parents who had gifted children in charter schools. They're in 3rd grade, 4th grade, and 5th grade. They had no idea. They were just trying to do the math. They're like, we don't know what to do. We don't know how to do it. I told them, call your teachers, call your principal, call your school board. And the response I got was, well, the school board is made up of just people who have no education, hasn't worked in the education system, no parents. I set them straight. I said, you know what? You need to talk to these people. There are parents, there are people who have been in the education system, and we have to get together and let them know what you guys are experiencing. That's the only way we're going to change anything. There's people out there, they don't know they have their voice. They don't know they have options to go to. I don't know what a kid who doesn't speak English or has a parent who maybe doesn't do well in math does for their homework every night. I just can't imagine. But I think, spending that much time and doing this to our kids, I just think it's too much, and I think we really need to support our teachers because they are the ones who are going to help our children. They are the ones who are going to help us. They shouldn't fear any kind of repercussion at all. These testing, we can go to the governor's not listening. Pam Stewart's not listening. Nobody's listening. So you know what? I'm taking my own action for my child and doing what's best for my child, and I don't care what they say. I will figure it out later. And that's what I got to do because I can't do this to my kid anymore. I just can't do it. And I know you guys are helping. You're doing the best that you can, but we have to work together, and we have to keep pushing. We have to do something more. I don't know what I'm going to do when test time comes and he has to sit there. I don't know. I'm just going to, have to figure it out and try and teach him what to do when he sits in front of that test and what he has to do. That's all I can do, and thank you for helping us. Thank you for listening to us, and I just encourage you to keep pushing and help our kids. Thank you.
Lori Fahey.
I do want to follow up on Angie's statement. I don't know if you saw recently, there was an article on the Go Math. There had been a study done about these, several of the different math tests. I don't want to use up all my time here. But they were proven to only have 38% Common Core instruction in them. And those are nightmare books. So I do hope the district will look at getting rid of them. Oops, I need my glasses now. I think the most critical issue facing our district today is not on the agenda for this meeting. Chaos and confusion are rampant in our public schools due to inconsistencies between the directives of the school board and the opposing directives of the superintendent. Recess has not been implemented consistently throughout our district, and sometimes not even consistently throughout the same school. Teachers are saying that recess is another burden on the staff because the day is so ridiculously tied up with mandated items like the 90-minute reading blocks, the new, more in-depth curriculum, and the ongoing district assessments. We are told that the atmosphere is frenetic. Board members have repeatedly requested a briefing meeting to cover all aspects of testing and tests in our district, as well as a cost analysis. When can we anticipate this briefing meeting to be scheduled? When can we anticipate for the school board directives on recess and testing to be conveyed to our schools and implemented? Our children and their teachers need structure and routine in order to go about their business of learning. On the agenda tonight, consent action item 4B3, the superintendent is asking you to approve the district taking out a tax anticipation note or a loan for an undisclosed amount for an unknown use to be paid back with the anticipated tax revenue. This is not an acceptable way for most of us to manage funds. Our district has spent well over $110 million in order to comply with computer requirements to comply with unfunded state-mandated tests, which do not benefit our children. This technology is probably already obsolete. While our students do without basic repairs, while our schools do without basic repairs, maintenance, and safe playground equipment. Mrs. Jerry Ware speaks to you every week about the needs and disrepair in our failing schools. Our superintendent tells us we cannot afford to build new schools for our students to learn in. Where is the accountability?
Ms. Morgan, those are all the cards.
Mr. Fox.
Everybody speaking here tonight is a perfect segue for my sales tax. The gentleman over there said sell land. He doesn't realize it's a drop in the bucket to the overall debt. This gentleman right here says the budget's 1.3. He doesn't realize it's half of what it should be. She just spoke of schools needing to be built. You don't have the money to build a school. You're going to have to borrow it and pay interest on it. Once again, I come to this board and remind you that what you do once you're elected is you don't represent anyone except those children and this school district. And your job is to get as much money in here as you possibly can. Hold the expenses down as much as you can and get as much money. You should be doing that every single day. That should be job one. So I'm asking once again, there are people out here who are not informed on the financial situation in this district, and it's incumbent upon you to inform them and also move tonight, if you can, to go for the sales tax. You need that money. Everything that's being said out here tonight, underneath it all, is financial problems. So please, let's get this district moving in the right direction. Go for the sales tax. Spend the money if that's what it takes to get a special referendum. It's at $126,000 a day in debt service. That's 10 days worth of debt service to pay for it. It's just really, it's high time you do it. I mean, this board is suffering, the school district's suffering, and the taxpayers are paying more taxes than they ought to be. The best way to keep their taxes low is to pay the tax, and the sales tax is the best way. Not dock stamps, not property values raised, not property taxes raised. You're not going to get any more money out of the lotto. There is no other way. So please, tonight, make a positive move and solve some of these problems that you're dealing with. Thank you.
Ms. Ware.
First, I would like to offer my condolences to the family of Mr. Scott. He was dear to me. Right at the end of my street is where he worked. So he was an asset to our community. And to his family, we offer our condolences. Well, to the school board and you, Dr. Graham, thank you once again for the opportunity to continue my quest for a solution for the have-nots, commonly called failing schools. While I did not meet with Dr. Graham, I had a very good dialogue with Mrs. Martha Hayes and Dr. Pruitt. I received information regarding the metrics that I asked were being implemented or other measures that were being done to help those schools. I look forward to communicating more with them and planning a community meeting with Mrs. Hayes to inform the people of those, the parents and the community of those failing schools of what's going on. Before I continue my dialogue, because I know I'll be back every school board meeting. I know it's going to take me the whole year, but it's okay. I'm very persistent. I'm very tolerant. Okay. One thing that I want to say is this. The young man that taught, I applaud Patriot. I don't know whether they've left, but I applaud you guys. I really do. I really applaud you. I wish that I could just take you over to these failing schools and see if I can get them from an F to a C. You jumped from a C to an A, so I applaud your efforts, and please try to help me out some way or another, okay? Let me continue on. I want to state a request before my time runs out, and I'm going to keep saying this every school board meeting. I would like to see the school built, that the money was allocated to be built on Marsh Avenue for that school. Instead of combining the elementary and middle schools, which set it up for failure, every school board meeting I'm going to be asking, where did that money go? Because the money was allocated for the construction of that school. The construction was started and was allowed, the school board allowed Dr. Browder to stop building that school, and I came and asked about it. So now let's get back to why my concerns about these failing schools. I'm going to share with you briefly some comments from an educator. I know I won't finish. It's okay. I'll be back to be continued. So I'll just say it this way. She said, to whom it may concern, I'm sending this letter because I'm confident enough that you will get the results needed in such a time as this. As an educator, parent, and employee of the Lee County School District, I feel the need to get this information out to the media due to several attempts to give the district information relating to James Stephen International Academy.
Thank you, Ms. Ware. Your time is up, ma'am.
I'll be back.
Make a couple of comments, and then I'm going to ask Dr. Graham to comment. First of all, with respect to the $15,000, that's capital and operating. It's not just operating. I'm not going to get into the whole budget breakdown about. Okay, then I'm going to stop making any comments. Dr. Graham, I am going to ask you to address the recess question, the book selection process, and I'm going to make a statement about the decision that was made at the last board meeting. As I understand it, Dr. Graham presented an assessment calendar that was required by law. The board chose not to approve that calendar, but that doesn't relieve the district of the responsibility of meeting the state mandate to provide progressive assessment of children's progress. And so the fact of the matter is, if a teacher chooses not to use the instrument that was created by teachers and principals in the district, we are not relieved of the responsibility of providing a test and demonstrating that students are making adequate progress. And those results we are obligated to report. So I'm just going to state that's how I understood the motion and the outcome of the meeting last Tuesday. And I just don't understand the comments about insubordination, because we are obligated as a district to provide progress management testing, and we are required to report it. And that is what the superintendent has been directed to do by this board. And then I'm going to let Dr. Graham take over with comments from there.
I'll speak to the concept test first and what's gone on since the last meeting. I did have a meeting with, I left that meeting and went to the Superintendent's Association meeting for 3 days. So the meeting with the principals was the following week on Tuesday. We met at that time, and it was made very clear to principals that the teachers had the choice to use whatever assessment they wanted to use, but as you said, progress monitoring had to continue, but they could use whatever they wanted. The concept tests were available if they wanted them. If they wanted to make changes, we said that they had to go into, that the tests had to go into Performance Matters, because that's where we track our data. It was decided, I decided today to remove the science and social studies assessments for now until teachers have an opportunity, because those are the two that teachers have expressed the most concern about, are the science and social studies. They were concerned about the length of the test. Part of it became longer because we added those two subjects. Those were taken away today. There is a process in place next week for teachers, every school, to send 2 of their lead teachers to come and work through those 2 documents, because the concerns were some of the questions the concern with science was that a lot of the questions were related to the textbooks, and teachers have been encouraged to use other sources, so that's what they've been doing with science, and they were bothered that some of the questions were textbook specific. The social studies, it's new and it's different, and we had some of the same concerns last year when we first put the ELA test out. So that process is in place for next week, and the teachers are going to be selected at the schools. When we had the meeting with the principals, they were all very clear that they were working with their professional learning communities and that teachers were making the decisions. Many of the teachers chose to continue to use the concept tests with the caveat that they would like to have the opportunity to adjust the math and the science. So that's where we are with those. They were never told it was business as usual. They were never told that they were to tell their teachers what to do. Teachers, what you said at the table was teachers were to have the authority to choose the assessments they needed. What I said at that time was there would still have to be some sense of assessment. We can only help children be sure they master the standards if we're assessing along the way. And I've said this to you all before. True assessment is ongoing. It's not a snapshot here and there. Ironically, while that conversation is happening, I'm still working very hard with the Superintendents Association to reach some of the goals that people are asking for. No one disagrees that the testing situation in Florida is a challenging one for children. So that's where we are. Those who want to use their own tests and need to put them in Performance Matters, training to be able to do that is happening later this month, and they will have multiple opportunities to learn how to just submit those. My hope is that they will take advantage of those trainings. People are available to help them if they choose to do their own tests. No one's stopping them from doing that. As far as the textbook from the College Board, we are required when we teach an advanced placement class, and that's the book that Ms. Quackenbush has referred to. We are required to use their text. There are other choices. The process to get that book is the same textbook process we use for others, and it was the decision of the committee. I'm looking for an answer to a question I had. Ms. Quackenbush has met with several, as she said, several people, and has pointed out some of the concerns, and the College Board has expressed where the book came from, and they're the ones that put on their website that it was a book that bothered people. And they have also released an exam to try and assure people that in an AP test, the book is really the least of it. There are lots of other sources, and that's part of the challenge to the children. You have your book, but you've got to go out and get other sources to prove, disprove. And the reason they released the exam was so that people could see we're not ignoring, we being the College Board, we're not ignoring the very things that people say are missing from the book, and that the exam tests those things, and that's part of being an advanced placement class. Having said that, we do have a policy that if someone objects to a book and wants to look about having it removed, there is a policy to do that. And I have asked, Mrs. Coots was scheduled to meet with Ms. Quackenbush last week, and I don't know what happened except that Ms. Quackenbush had to cancel, and so that particular meeting. And but my directive, because I was out of town when that was occurring, was that Mrs. Coots was to share the process of how to go about making her complaint about the book an official one, because I didn't know what else was left to say, because we've all talked about the book. So there is a process, and I will see to it that Ms. Quackenbush gets that policy number, and we'll proceed from there. That would have happened at the last meeting that they gathered. Was there something else?
Recess.
Recess. Yeah, there's been emails and calls and saying that our playground equipment is out of shape and that people aren't having recess. Every school is doing recess. They are doing it. If you walk by and you see a playground, that doesn't mean the playground isn't being used. When you have a lot of kids out at one time, they're all going to be in different places. Some schools have purchased hula hoops and jump ropes and all kinds of things and have kids playing in different areas around the school. Every elementary school we have checked twice. Every elementary school has included their 15 minutes of recess. There are 2 schools that have put in work orders to have their playground equipment repaired in some way. One school just called today, and they had a rail on a slide that needed to be fixed, and it was fixed. The other 2 work orders, one has been addressed today, the other will be addressed tomorrow. The way our maintenance works is there's a process to fill out a work order, and then the work is doled out to those who do those things in the zones. And so there are only 2 schools where the playground equipment had any issues. All elementary schools have included 15 minutes of recess in their school for this year. So I'm not sure why that continues to remain a story. I would tell you that if there is a school that someone really believes recess isn't happening, we need to know the name of the school, and we will talk to the principal.
Okay, thank you. Next is approval of action items in the agenda under consent. No. You're engaged in an ongoing conversation. Next is the approval of action items in the agenda under consent. Board members, are there any agenda items you wish to pull for discussion under the unfinished business tabled items portion of the agenda? Ms. Fisher.
I have none this evening, thank you.
Mrs. Dozier.
None, thank you.
Mr. Armstrong.
I have none.
And I have none. May I have a motion to approve the agenda's consent items?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Mrs. Fisher, seconded by Mrs. Dozier. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries 4-0. Okay. Unfinished business tabled items. A motion was made at the September 23rd, 2014 regular board meeting by Mr. Armstrong, seconded by Mrs. Dozier, to require 10 minutes of age-appropriate instructional time in social studies addressing the terrorist attacks of September 11, 2001, effective with the 2015-16 school year. The motion was postponed until the October 7, 2014 regular school board meeting. This motion is now on the floor. Is there any discussion?
Yes, I do. Oh, no, Ms. Dozier had her hand up.
Go ahead.
Yeah, you made the motion.
You made the motion.
Okay, thank you. I've had some lengthy conversations with a few people about this. I even talked to Dr. Graham a little bit about this. So if you could give us your opinion on it as well.
I will tell you that we've looked at what goes on in the curriculum. Let me start by saying there are some years that not all students will have a social studies class. There is a SharePoint, social studies SharePoint, that all teachers have access to. It is loaded with lesson plans, resources designed for teachers to use to recognize and acknowledge 911 and the piece of history that it is. There, in the newly adopted textbooks for our social studies courses, grade 11, 10, 7, there are portions that address 911. I spoke with staff and with some school folks, and I don't think we have a school that doesn't recognize 911, and I would encourage the board to, if you want to be sure this is on the books, to direct that you want to be sure that 911 is acknowledged in some way every year at every school. I believe that's happening, but we can be sure that happens. I'm unsure if a policy is necessary, only because we have, I've looked at what's gone on, and I have this to send you. But there are multiple sources that teachers already have access to that they are using, and 911 is being acknowledged in every school.
I know for a fact that it's not.
Okay.
So I'll call you on that one.
Okay, that's
I know
fine.
for a fact it's not.
I'd be interested to know, not now, but which schools, and we'd be happy to address that.
No, better yet, we need to make the motion. We need to make sure this is acknowledged across the board to all schools. I'm a firm believer in this. I'm also a firm believer that our kids need to be educated on this. Not all schools are doing it. And I think that this is something, even if a school does it across the board for 10 minutes, you know, which I guess I'm a little bit kind of taken back because part of our conversation yesterday, he was all in favor of, you know, the motion and to not just for social studies but across the board.
Yeah, I think what we talked about is that if you were going to have sorry.
For our conversation, he was all for it. He was agreeable on it. You even said, you know, I'm not even sure if social studies. I'm a little leery to put it just in social studies because I want to make sure all students have it. Now you almost sound like you're kind of, I guess, balancing back and forth on it.
No, I'm absolutely clear that students, none of us can ever forget 911. I'm absolutely clear on that. And what I encouraged yesterday was if it was going to be put into a rule or a policy, that be careful about naming a specific subject because not every child has social studies every year. I just want to say that I believe this can happen either way. I'm not sure that the board needs to spell out clearly and specifically how it needs to happen. If that's what the board chooses to do, obviously that's what they're going to do. All I'm saying is the material's out there. It is part of many textbooks, and I will make sure that it happens in the schools that it's not happening. And my understanding was that most schools it is. I thought it was all schools. If it's not, I'll need to know which schools it's not.
Ms. Dozier, I'd like to hear your opinion as well, please.
I actually, I agree with you. I think that this is very appropriate for us to have. I think this goes to exactly what Mrs. Quackenbush is talking about, the fact that we are losing a semblance of the history that founded this country that we live in. And this is part of the history now in our country. So I'm prepared to make listening to what the superintendent just said about not having social studies in every grade. Some grades do not have social studies every year. So I'm prepared to make an amendment to the motion, and that is I would like to make an amendment to the motion that where it says in social studies, I'd like to scratch that out, and it would say 10 minutes of age-appropriate instructional time at some time during the day to address the terrorist attacks of September 11, 2001, effective with the 15-16 school year. So I think that would take care of the fact that it would be age-appropriate, which means in every school, and it would be done in every school because at some time during the day in every school. Now that should take care of the fact that there should be like a segment taught about 9/11, whether it's taught on the school news, whether it's taught in a classroom, whether the kids are brought into the auditorium. There's a myriad of ways that it can be done, but this motion, Mr. Martin, I'm going to ask you, does this motion take care of that? That this must happen from next year forward unless this is rescinded in every single school in our district?
Yes, this would be an action by the board directing that be implemented. And the motion to amend would then require it at every school. And my understanding is once a year, sometime during the school day.
Correct. Thank you.
I'll second it.
Mrs. Fisher, do you have any comments?
Well, yes. 9/11 will never be forgotten by me and people who were there to witness it. It is a sad part of our history. It was a significant emotional event, an act of terrorism, which changed our country forever. Much like years back, the bombing of Iwo Jima or World War I issues. And those are in our history books. And I know that nationwide there are many observations on that day to remember, because they say, well, let's never forget. I'm a little bit reluctant to
support a policy that isolates one historical event, demanding or requiring that we teach that when we have so many in our history that need to be taught and remembered. And for our children, it's a different, they weren't there, they didn't see it. However, they have seen it repeatedly, time after time, because every year, at least on that day, if not more frequently, there is the visual where 40, 50 years ago you didn't have that kind of media coverage and you didn't have that instant you are there thing. So I believe that we should never forget. I believe that it was one of the most significant events in our history. I absolutely agree that it should be part of what's taught to our children. I just don't know if we need a policy to do that. I mean, to say let's remember just like we do other significant events, like we do Veterans Day. I mean, I think almost every school has something, and most of them include their whole student body. So there are ways of doing that so that it becomes a tradition and it becomes something that we recognize, and that we take the opportunity to provide education about terrorism and about not being afraid all the time, but to keep living and making our community and our world a more peaceful place. So those are my comments.
I'm going to offer my comments. I agree with Mrs. Fisher. I can't support putting in policy any curriculum requirement. I believe as a directive, it's appropriate for us to tell the superintendent that we expect this historical event to be covered. But I don't see the need to create a policy, because then, well, I just don't think that we should be dictating curriculum. So those are my comments. Any more discussion?
Sure,
Okay.
I'll make some discussion. What was really disheartening to me is we have teachers that was told, do not teach about 9/11. Do not teach about 9/11. It's not in the test. It's not in the test. And Ms. Fisher, you're right. There's a lot of other significant things that's out there. But our history books talks about it, and unfortunately, it is in the test. In several different tests. To me, this is a piece of our history that everybody just wants to pretend it doesn't happen. Some of our kids doesn't know about it. And it's our right, as educator leaders, to make sure that these students know some of the most significant things that's happened in the history. And that's one of them. You talk about it, you don't feel that it's right to mandate what these kids learn or not. But that's actually our job. The state's already mandates enough.
One more comment from you, and I am going to direct someone to remove you, because you're interfering with the discussion that we are trying to have at the board table to understand one another. Thank you.
The state already mandates enough. This is something they do not. It's not only our right as a board, it's our responsibility. It's our responsibility to the kids. So I applaud you for our kids' sake, for your grandkids, my kids, and the 88,000 other kids to support this, because this is something that needs to be done. It is our responsibility. Thank you.
Just to be clear, Ms. Morgan, excuse me. The motion before you at this time is not to adopt a policy. It's to provide a directive to include this subject in the curriculum in the instructional time. It's not been presented as a policy.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I did misunderstand. Mrs. Dozier.
Well, Veterans Day is coming up in another month, and in fact, I received several different announcements about different schools, and even this building here is going to do something for Veterans Day. And while I would never diminish anyone and their and what they did for this country, because I think that all of us know a veteran. We've been affected by veterans, everybody in this room. Memorial Day, that's another day that we honor, and that's a day that I would be willing to say, probably teachers at some point say why the kids are out. 9/11 comes, 9/11 goes, and if you don't remember your history and where you've come from, then you're going to forget. I had the opportunity this summer to visit Auschwitz and Birkenau. And I'm telling you, I know that there are people in this country today that swear that the Holocaust did not happen. "50 years from now, I will be here. But I don't want anybody in this country not to know that 9/11 didn't happen. And if I can do anything about having it in our curriculum, then it's my responsibility to do that, because it's something that I will never forget. But I want to make sure that the little girl that was 2 years old when it happened gets a little lesson on it every now and then. So I'm going to support this motion."
Other discussion?
Can we repeat the motion then?
Okay, the motion is...
Do you want me to read the whole motion? Because I've got the language right here.
The motion to amend is what's on the floor at this point.
correct.
A motion to amend would be scratch out the word after time, and it would be at some time during the school day to address the terrorist attacks of 9/11. I mean, it's the same wording with the exception, I changed the wording right there, which would mean that it would be taught every day in every school. I mean, it would be taught every year in every school on 9/11. There would be a 10-minute, if you want to call it a 10-minute segment, a 10-minute remembrance, but there would be an acknowledgement that 9/11 occurred.
Any discussion? Okay, let's call the vote then.
Well,
Mrs.
okay, because I had written down that someone said 10 minutes of age-appropriate instructional time. So are we talking about instructional time or an acknowledgement or some remembrance of 9/11?
Well, it's age-appropriate instructional time at some time during the school day to address the terrorist attacks of 9/11. So the amendment is to, and I've scratched it out so much I can't see, I think it says to social studies. So, wait a minute, I can look at this other agenda item. Exactly, let's see. Yeah, in social studies. So we're removing the word.
The amendment is to remove the words social studies.
In social studies.
That's it.
Yes.
And to add the other...
addressing, because it would be at some time during the school day to address the terrorist attacks of 9/11.
Okay, well, I'm going to piggyback on what Mrs. Fisher said. I have no problem addressing it. I just have a problem carving out instructional time, dictating that instructional time is what's to be used for the address. So I will propose a motion to amend the amendment to delete the word instructional. No second? Okay, then that fails. So we're back to the original amendment.
Well, say your motion one more time, and I'll second for discussion.
Okay, require 10 minutes of age-appropriate time to address the terrorist attacks of September 11, 2001.
So you're basically just eliminating the word instructional.
Correct.
Okay, all right, I can live with that. Because, I mean, did you say the word remembrance or anything like that, or you just age-appropriate time at some time during, is that the way it's going to read?
Well, it's to require 10 minutes of age-appropriate time.
May I make a word suggestion?
Sure. Thank
Instead
you.
of time, age-appropriate acknowledgement?
It's even better.
So it's age-appropriate acknowledgement?
Mm-hmm.
Addressing the terrorist attacks. Okay.
Yep. Well, I'm comfortable with that.
I can second that.
Okay.
Mr. Armstrong?
Well, and I guess what I worry about is now there's no time, so that means it could be 30 seconds.
No, it's 10 minutes.
No, there's still 10 minutes. There's still 10 minutes, yeah.
And then non-instructional,
They're using the word acknowledgement instead.
the purpose was to teach the kids something about it.
And should we say a minimum of 10 minutes? Because some, developmentally at later times, they might have a long discussion about it.
I just think 10 minutes says it, and if they want to do more, they can do more.
Okay.
That's how I would read it.
But, I mean, I was looking for something more instructional to teach them something that they can learn from, whether it's doing a report, watching a video, reading something on it, something that's, we do enough of watch a movie over here. Let's let them get into it. Some kids do better when they actually do something other than just, well, here's the building and it fell, and I don't want these kids just to think that way. Our jobs is to make sure there's some type of education. And if we take that out, what do we really have? Brick and mortar. Well, now it's not even brick and mortar. It's called stucco. I think the instruction needs to be left in it. I could support the way Ms. Dozier put it out there, but by taking the instruction out, we're just going right back to creating robots again. I don't want to create robots. I'm not a robotics.
Other comments? So we have a motion to require, this is an amendment.
So it's an amendment to the amendment.
Amendment, right. To require 10 minutes of age-appropriate acknowledgement addressing the terrorist attacks of September 11th, 2001, effective with the 2015-16 school year.
The only portion that is part of the amendment to the amendment.
Oh, I'm sorry, is the removal of instructional and the insertion of acknowledgement.
Yes, I believe also the word time.
Okay, yes, right. Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, so motion carries 3-1. Now to the amendment. To require 10 minutes appropriate acknowledgement
At some time during
at some time during the day, right?
To
Thank
address.
you. To address, right. The terrorist attacks of September 11, 2001.
And that is once per year, correct?
Yes.
And I'd heard mentioned at one point, I believe, on 9/11. Is that?
Yes.
Correct. Could you read you just lost me completely. What the motion you just...
That was Mrs. Dozier's amendment to your motion.
That's what we just voted on.
No, we haven't voted yet.
We voted on your...
Just voted on.
We just voted on Ms. Morgan's.
And we passed it.
Okay. So the motion now is to require at some time during the day of 9/11 appropriate acknowledgement to address the terrorist attacks of September 11, 2001. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Did you say aye? Motion carries 4-0. Thank you. Superintendent's recommendation.
And now you're on the main motion.
Oh, main motion. I'm so sorry. Okay. Now we're back to the main motion.
Yes, ma'am. With that amendment.
With the amendments.
Right. So, at some time during the day.
No, during the day is not part of it.
All right, I'm going to ask Mr. Martin to read it.
Yes, the main motion has been amended so that it now reads,
okay,
and this is the issues now before you, to require 10 minutes of age-appropriate acknowledgement at some time during the school day on September 11 to address the terrorist attacks of September 11, 2001, effective with the 2015-16 school year.
Thank you. Okay. All in favor? Aye. Motion carries 4-0. And moving on to superintendent's recommendations, we have some good cause recommendations. Dr. Graham.
Ms. Morgan, before I do that, may I introduce the new administrators?
yes, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. This is when I do it,
thank
I
you.
remember. William Rothenberg from Professional Standards and Equity, Coordinator of Professional Standards and Equity.
He's not here. There he is.
Thank you. His family came with him. They've been most patient. Denise Fitzpatrick from Fort Myers Middle, from teacher to assistant principal. Todd Everly from the Southwest Florida Public Service Academy, Director of Public Service Programs, to the Interim Director of the Technical and Career Education, Adult and Career Education. We have a new principal at Sunshine Elementary, and that's Ben Osman, but he is hosting a K-2 curriculum night at his school, so he's unable to be here. So welcome to your new roles in administration. We appreciate your service. Cause approval to authorize the board chairman, vice chairman, and superintendent of schools to sign checks and to allow the continued use of the former chairman's facsimile signature until a new facsimile is received on the following School Board of Lee County bank accounts: service account with Bank of America and SunTrust Bank, accounts payable impressed with Bank of America and SunTrust Bank, payroll impressed with Bank of America and SunTrust Bank, food service account with Bank of America and SunTrust Bank, public interest checking with Bank of America, tax shelter annuity with Wells Fargo, vending account with SunTrust Bank, UPIC account with SunTrust Bank.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Dozier, seconded by Mrs. Fisher. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0.
Ratification of the fiscal year 15 reopener of the 2014-16 collective bargaining agreement with the Support Personnel Association of Lee County and an approximate expenditure for FY15 of $4,126,747. And I just want to say that this is I think the highest rate of passing at 98-point-some%. So we're very, very excited about that.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Fisher, supported by Mr. Armstrong. Any discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 4-0.
Approval of the proposed supervisory, technical, and confidential employee salary schedule for FY15, which includes a salary enhancement of 3.6% retroactive to July 1, 2014 for regularly established positions within the schedule at an approximate expenditure for FY15 of $891,250, including benefits.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Dozier.
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Fisher. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 4-0. Oh, thank you. Motion carries 4-0.
Approval to renew bid number B137142BC for cafeteria disposables to Calico Institutes of Florida LLC, Central Poly Corp., Dade Paper and Bag Corp., Daxwell LLC, Peninsular Paper Company, Quill Corp., Servpack Products Inc., and Wallace Packaging LLC for the first renewal period of October 23, 2014 through October 22, 2015 at the estimated annual expenditure of $1,200,000 pursuant to the same terms and conditions as previously approved by the board. Approval authorizes the superintendent to execute all related documents.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Dozier,
Support.
supported by Mrs. Fisher. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 4-0.
Approval to piggyback State of Florida contract number 618-000-1101 for the purchase of office supplies and products awarded to multiple vendors, including Office Depot, commencing on the date of the renewal of the contract by the State of Florida and ending no later than October 17, 2015, for an estimated expenditure of $1,250,000, with an option to cancel if deemed to be in the best interest of the district. Approval authorizes the superintendent to execute all related documents.
You've heard the superintendent's recommendation. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Dozier,
Support.
supported by Mr. Armstrong. Any discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 4-0.
Hard copies come in handy.
I knew you were going to say that.
Would you like to borrow one?
Thank you, though. I apologize. Approval to correct the base period for ITN number N116994SM for exhaust fans replaced and repaired district-wide to be 3 years as originally published for the period October 25, 2011 through October 24, 2014, and to renew the ITN with Country Cooling and Heating, Inc., for the period of October 25, 2014 through October 24, 2015, at the estimated annual expenditure of $500,000 pursuant to the same terms and conditions as previously approved by the board. Approval authorizes the superintendent to execute all related documents.
Board members, you have heard the superintendent's recommendation. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Dozier,
Support.
supported by Mr. Armstrong. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 4-0.
Ratification of the proposed 2015 legislative program of the Greater Florida Consortium of School Boards.
Board members, you have heard the superintendent's recommendation. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Fisher, seconded by Mrs. Dozier. Any discussion? Mrs. Dozier.
Well, I know that we went over to Palm Beach and we all worked on this diligently. And while sometimes some people may not understand why things are positioned the way they are, we have been working on the funding issue for quite some time, and that remains an issue because if you look at capital and you separate the capital with the operational expenses, and you look at private schools, the private schools' money that they use every year, they use for the instruction of the students. They have a capital plan that they use before they even build a building. And so that's never part of what's incurred during the school year. So I understand why that is the top priority of the school district. And I also understand if I had tried to move everything around, I may not have gotten any support that night. And it was important to me to get some support, because in order to get anything moving, you've got to get people to support it. And I feel as though we are moving in the right direction. We've got we've got probably some of the districts tonight that are going to be approving this plan. I'm going to approve it because the sooner we get it approved, the sooner we can start working with the legislators as a collective group. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Mr. Armstrong.
Yeah, I actually just want to say publicly to Ms. Dozier for going up there, standing in front and fighting to move this forward. I know you've worked very hard and diligently and did not let it go, so I wanted to say thank you publicly for what you did up over there.
Yeah, I would second that. I think we're all indebted to Mrs. Dozier for this work on our legislative program. Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0. Okay, board member comments. Mr. Armstrong.
Well, I have several of them right now. Dr. Graham, you just had to start with me today.
Oh, well.
No, it's okay. Because of the recent Texas incident, what have you planned for the Ebola? I know that things have happened over there. Have you discussed it? Have you looked into what we would do here?
No, sir.
That is not an answer I wanted to hear. Not an answer.
I would say to you that my guess is that should there be such a case in our area, the health department would take charge of that situation and tell us what we would need to do. But to answer your question, no, I
think we need to be more proactive, so hopefully you can look into that one fairly quick. The other thing, and I've talked to you, Dr. Graham, about this a few times, and I've yet to see, and I have not got an answer from you. I've asked for, I know years ago before I was on this board, Ms. Dozier and her board had, every year would put up on the internet a detailed financial report. Is that correct? Because I mean, it's up to 2009 right now. That was the last time it was up.
You're talking about our budget?
Yeah, well, we had a total expenditure report up there every year.
Yeah, yeah.
And I know you guys kept it up until 2009. Dr. Graham, why are we not continue that? Because that's something that I know the public, they have the right to see it. We continue to talk about transparency, and I'd like to see us continue that and move on that and update it and get it up ASAP. Enough waiting. I don't want to hear that it can't happen, because back then they did it. No reason why we can't do it now.
To staff.
Well, before you take it as a directive from one board member, let the other board members weigh in.
I'm curious if it was every expense. I really don't know what it is. That's why I'm looking at Dr. Desimorta.
I'm actually looking at Ms. Dozier because I don't know how you guys did it last time and why you did the directive.
And I can't.
Your finance report.
Yeah, it was our financial report, but I don't remember exactly who was responsible for getting it up on the website. I don't remember. I don't remember who.
Is it something the board wants on the website?
I think what the board would like is for you to tell us what it is and then make a decision whether or not. I mean, probably everything should be on the website. So is the report being done? Then it goes up on the website. If it's not being done, there probably is a new report that has replaced the old report. So let's just find out what the story is.
And isn't the budget on?
Yeah, budget's on the
budget's
website.
on there, and on our annual report, I know we put some of that. But
This was always a detailed report. It was a detailed financial breakdown of where everything was spent.
And I think that's the budget. Yeah, because the budget has a line-by-line item, and I have not looked on the website to see if it's there, but...
They're nodding in the back that it's there.
It is there, so have you looked to see if the budget is there? Is that
It's not the budget. It was a detailed financial report you guys had that every year, and I'll be more than happy. I'll pull it up and show you guys the link later.
All right. Yeah, that
But it's
would be the thing to do.
But I think that, for transparency reasons, I know a lot of different municipalities do it as well, and I think that for some reason you guys did it back then.
Are you talking about when we do budget amendments every month?
No. Okay. This is a detailed, and I'll show it to you because I actually printed it out.
Because I know that was something that didn't used to be on the website, and then we started putting the budget amendments on the website. So And right now, the only thing I'm relating to with a line by line is the actual budget.
It used to be a detailed report where we could get on there. I mean, unfortunately.
Mr. Armstrong's going to give a copy of it to Dr. Graham, and she can consult with the financial staff and get back to us. Okay. Other
Yep,
comments?
sure do.
Okay.
Have you ever heard me be short lately? Come on. The other thing I did want to talk about, at the last board meeting, we opted out of the testing. We didn't opt out of the testing, we put it back in the teacher's hands. That's how I understood it. That's how the teachers understood it. You know, if you're going to tell me that performance matters, which is also linked to progress monitoring, that means it's linked to state mandated tests. And we're still given all 68 tests. What tests have we got rid of? That you've got the directive to get rid of, that we made a promise to the public. What tests have we got rid of?
Progress monitoring is still expected. We've given no number. We've said that the standards need to be assessed and they need to be progress monitored. And that's the performance matters is the piece where what they are using to assess the standards specifically.
What tests have we got rid of?
You didn't approve the calendar that I presented and recommended. So those are gone. They remain available, but you took away that calendar. Those are the tests that are gone.
And I'm being told we're still having the principal, well, they're still being told they have to give those tests. Now, this brings me to a very interesting thing, which something happened today that I left out of here so quick. And I know, Dr. Graham, you wondered why I left so fast. And I'm getting ready to explain to you why I left fast. My ex-wife called me and said, I got a letter. It's addressed to you. It's at my house. Well, that's odd. I said, open it up, read it. We're still legally married. Open my mail, I don't care. I trust her, actually. It was a letter from a teacher. She was scared to send a letter per email. They're scared of you. They're scared of you. And I continue to hear it. You've said yourself before there was a fear in this district when you used to work here. You know, we need to come out with a way to curb that fear, to make these people feel comfortable. They're writing me handwritten letters and sending it to my ex-wife, to her address. This is not just the first one. I've seen several letters. They're afraid to say something. They're afraid. So I'm asking you now, publicly, Dr. Graham, out of respect for these teachers that I know you was a teacher, or were a teacher. Sorry. Don't want you to correct my grammar there. They're afraid that if they speak out in favor of what this board has done, that if you find out, there might be fear and intimidation. You need to confront that and make sure these people tonight know that they're entitled to their opinion. I have teachers who call me now who dislike something I said. And matter of fact, I was stopped out in the out front earlier, and somebody didn't like what I said at the briefing meeting, let me know about it. I respected that. Everybody's entitled to their opinion, but not to be scared to lose their job. That they're not entitled to. That I will fight for. I will fight for these teachers' rights, because that's the right thing to do. I don't want anybody to be scared in this district. Seen enough fear over the years. Needs to stop. You know, I talked to you about this the other day, and I asked you to send an email out to kind of curve this, and I never seen it. I know you don't want that to happen to these people or want them to feel that way. I'll ask you now, I'll appeal to you to make a statement tonight and make these people understand that they're all entitled to their opinion, respectfully. But I will tell you, as far as I understood, and unfortunately, I couldn't look it up today because the meeting minutes are not online right now. But as far as I understood what we did, we gave it up to the teachers to give those tests if they so choose to. I don't remember giving it to you, to those teachers. I did. No offense, but I am trying to put some control back into the classroom and away from this board and back where it belongs, into the teachers' hands. And I'll continue to fight that. Now I have one more thing. So please bear with me. Last week was a very tough week for me. I lost somebody close. I spent some time with him. So this morning I wrote something. He lived his life with grace and cheer, an amazing friend to so many dear. He placed the kids at the top of his list. His presence and voice will surely be missed. He was the type his big smile would greet to those around him, generous and sweet. With his time on earth, he was selfless and kind. The memory shall grow in each of our mind. A respect for him I will forever have. His words of wisdom shall echo in this room. For fighting for the kids, he never failed. With thoughts of sadness together we share. With heavy hearts, we must say goodbye, but his legacy shall never die. His name is Tom Scott, a colleague and my friend. Thank you.
Mrs. Dozier.
Thank you. And I, too, have had thoughts of his family and thoughts of Mr. Scott's passing, and I think that all of us here are aware that there is an absence at the table, not only at the table, but also a voice that's not with us this evening. And I know my prayers have continued to be before he passed away, and also now, about his family and with his family. Dr. Graham, you and I had a interesting meeting yesterday, back and forth in the car and so forth, because we had a meeting going somewhere. But we did talk about the testing, and I shared with you that there were some concerns about misdirection out there, and that people didn't quite understand where they were, because we've heard from some of we've heard from different elements of people talking about they don't understand what the direction is. And so I would certainly hope that there is not direction given that they've got to go ahead and give the test, because that was certainly not the direction of the board. I would like to wish good luck to all of those that were appointed this evening, and I do not see the interim person for Sue Rashawn, but I did have the opportunity to attend Sue Rashawn's retirement. In fact, she will definitely be missed. And I was going to tell him that she has littler shoes than he does, but he's got a big position to fill while he's at the interim. I also had the opportunity to meet with Major Tim Gilliam with the Salvation Army, and I met with him about 2 weeks ago, and then I said, how can I help you? And he asked, we need to bring an awareness and, to the people here in the district. And he said, I would like to be in front of the superintendent. I would like to thank Dr. Graham for agreeing to that meeting yesterday. Listening to the fact that we do have some of our students that are definitely affected by being homeless, without food, and hearing someone that sees this every day tell you about it, it definitely makes a difference, and we all need to be aware of that. And I know that we will work with them and do whatever we can to make sure that we provide an understanding and any services that we can possibly supply. And I'm going to say this because, and I'm not going to say to teachers, don't disregard homework, but homework is something that I do know that sometimes when kids come in and they say, well, I don't have my homework, and they don't tell you why they don't have their homework. Sometimes it's because they didn't have a place to do their homework, because they were living in a car, living in a tent or something like that. So we just need to be mindful of we don't know where the children have walked every day before they come to us. So I hope that everybody out there is mindful of that, because you never know what somebody has been into. And what someone has experienced before they're in front of you or whatever. So I would just ask that everyone be mindful of that when they're dealing with children. Oh, I apologize. Goodness, this has been a tough meeting. Excuse me, I'm sorry. I had the opportunity to meet with Representative Fitzenhagen. Also, I met with Representative Fitzenhagen. I met with Representative Dane Eagle. And I'm also I'm scheduled to meet with Representative Rodriguez and Senator I can only think of his first name right now because I didn't write it down. Richter. Garrett Richter. Yeah, I can only think of his first name right now. Anyway, and I have appointments set up to meet with Garrett Richter and Rodriguez. But I will tell you that all of them are aware of the discussions that are going on here in this boardroom. And all of them, in fact, Representative Eagle has asked me to come back and have another discussion with him about this issue, and I told him, I said, I can assure you it's going to be ongoing. It's going to be something that is ongoing, because y'all have your work cut out for y'all when y'all get to Tallahassee. So keeping that in mind, just knowing that there are conversations that are being had out there with the people that are going to make the decisions. I had the opportunity to attend a Keep Lee County Beautiful meeting, and this is a group here in Lee County that we have kids every year that are recognized, and it's always a very nice ceremony, and our kids are given scholarships. But this year they did something a little different for every teacher that was there, and I'm going to tell you, teachers that didn't show up. They made sure that every teacher got a $50 gift certificate to Publix, which that's not much, but it is something that they did. It was outreaching that they did, so I certainly appreciate the fact that the executive director, Rudy Bush, wanted to also do something for the teachers, because he recognizes how hard all of these teachers work. We also had our construction advisory committee this past week, and in that committee, again, we are talking about what are the topics that we're going to talk about this year, and of course P3 is one of them. And they were also asking, are we as a board going to give direction of topics like we used to our advisory committees? And I said I didn't know that, but I would bring that question here to the board, so that might be something that we want to talk about. I also had the opportunity to have lunch with Governor Scott's wife, and I had a little brief conversation with her, and she did say that the governor is well aware that things in education are going up, and she said, well, you know, he realizes that he's got some work to do in education. I said, well, my response was, well, let's get to work. And I said, you know, I appreciate him recognizing the fact that there's things going on, and I will probably be in his office this year. So just let him know that I will be there, and I will be talking to him about all of these issues that we are seeing at a race. And I'm going to bring a lot of friends with me, and you know, so I'm letting all of them know that I'm going to bring a lot of friends with me when I go up to Tallahassee this year. I had the opportunity to attend the Rotary Dictionary Day, and I'm going to tell you, seeing those kids get their dictionary for the first time, it's really a joy to see that, and I always love to see the excitement on their faces, and I thank the Rotary for doing that. I had the opportunity to attend a Light the Night ceremony, which it's the first time that it has taken place here in Lee County. It's for leukemia and the lymphonia. And it was a ceremony that they said, I hope that we can get some kids, students involved. So one of the things that I'm going to encourage is maybe in the future, some of our honor society groups and something like that. I know that a lot of them already work with different groups, but I know that one of our students here tonight, his father was actually in charge, like the coordinator, Belcher, Steve Belcher, and he was one of our student aides. And I said, you know, I'm sure that our teachers would be more than happy to, you know, let our students participate, you know, and help with this, because there's all sorts of things that they have to do with these different fundraisers. But the fact that this was the first one here in Lee County, it was a tremendous turnout, and I applaud them for bringing it to Lee County. And from what I understand, it's going to be a regular event here in Lee County. So maybe we can get some of our students participating. Dr. Graham and I also had an appointment yesterday afternoon with the CEO of Private Sky. And, you know, one of the things that we always do, we look for different ways that we can help students. Well, one of the things that I know we're going to be looking at, and that is, and I hope that we're going to put something in that high school. That was one of the things that we talked about, that high school that's going to be built. The fact that there are, at a very rapid rate, AP mechanics, which is airplane, I learned. AMP mechanics are retiring at a rapid rate, and if we had a school that was certified by the government, and our kids could get certification, they could be employed immediately upon exiting. It's a very rigorous school. I'm real excited about it. It's like some other schools that, you know, academies that we've started here in Lee County, where we've got kids that can have their EMS when they get out of high school. This is the same thing. But these jobs, I mean, the starting pay is like $80,000 a year, that's more than a lot of college degrees actually get. So that's something that I'm real excited about. And I'm going to hold my dear friend to the fire. I mean, he told us, he says, I can even get y'all a plane donated so that the kids can take it apart, put it back together, take it apart, put it back together. And he had already told me that he, you know, could help us possibly with, you know, some funding and that type thing. And then he ponied up and said, I'll get you an airplane. I was like, oh yes, you know. So anyway, that's something that I'm real excited, and I certainly hope that it will be something that will be a consideration for that new high school that's being built. I also had an opportunity to meet with a gentleman who is a former surgeon. He also was an instructor in the actual operating room, teaching doctors, but now he's gone into a different kind of science, and it's called brain research. And I see somebody back there with real curly hair that did a lot of brain research. In fact, I almost gave him your name, but I didn't want to do that until I asked you if I could. But he has opened a center in Naples. I see you back there making all those hand gestures. Thank you for bringing some levity to this. But Brain Balance is he's opened it down in Naples, and it's for students with disabilities. And he's bringing a well-known speaker, doctor, writer to this area, and I broke the rules yesterday, and I called because Dr. Graham was in with you, and I broke every rule in the book and called Mr. Burston and asked him to come down and meet this gentleman. And anyway, he is offering up, he's bringing him here for $5,000. He's bringing him here for 2 days, the 5th and 6th of December, and he's offering time for our teachers to go and hear this gentleman speak on brain disorders and all that, and that might be something that suits your fancy and interests you. Anyway, I certainly hope that's something that they can actually do. Mr. Fox no, he's still here. Mr. Fox, you know, I'm going to tell you, and I looked up in my folder. I was actually one of the ones that was leading the charge several years ago about the, and I can't remember how many years ago, about the sales tax. And, you know, maybe you know something that I don't know, and I would ask you, you know, before we can put any money out to put it on the ballot or anything like that, we've got to have data that we can use. And I understand that you come, and I appreciate the fact that you are coming and advocating for that. I would ask you if you wanted to do a survey, you know, like a random survey of the community, and, you know, bring us some data that shows that people are willing to support a tax referendum. You know, because that is what we actually did before, and we saw that no one was willing to support it. If the figures are wrong out there and they're willing to support it, then I'm all for it. You know, I don't know if the people were saying I see people shaking their heads saying they're not ready, you know, they're not supporting it. That's all I hear all the time. So if you can, you know, do a survey and bring that data to us, I'd be more than happy to join I can't allow you to, I'm sorry. We don't speak during board member comments except the board members speak. But if you want to bring data at a future meeting, I'd certainly be more than willing to listen to you, because we listen to hard data. Dr. Graham, there was I believe, comments made about 2 specific schools that were not doing recess. Someone said that Edison Park and Trafalgar were 2 schools that were not.
Those schools have been called in the last 24 hours.
Okay. All right. As long as we know that they are. And with that, you know, Miss Ware comes repeatedly, and I just say God bless her. I mean, she is advocating for a group of children that are near and dear and she's in love with. And, you know, I know that we are doing whatever we can, but if there's more that we can do to help these failing schools, I'm all for it, because, you know, none of us want to see any failing schools. And, you know, when a school has the stigma attached to it that it's a failing school, none of the parents want their kids to go there. So, you know, and I know there's been all sorts of suggestions about, instead of moving children, move teachers. God knows that's not, I can see all sorts of people going like this, you know. I mean, there's been suggestions, you know, about moving teachers around the county. I mean, we've been hearing a lot about this lately, you know, so that every children, and I'm not saying I advocate that, Miss Mutsonar, I see you, you know, in your look in your face. I'm not saying I advocate that. I'm just telling you there's a lot of conversations out there around the schools that have the real, you know, this and that. And anyway, so with that being said, I'm going to end my comments because I feel like I'm blubbering right now. So thank you very much.
Okay, Mrs. Fisher.
Okay, where to begin? You've been busy. I want to start by talking a little bit about wellness. You know, healthy kids are ready to learn and they succeed. Healthy adults are able to take care of those kids. We have a wellness program in the district, and a lot of people are on board. And I had an opportunity to attend the insurance task force meeting the other night, and I learned that the results of having that wellness program and people getting wellness checks and participating in nutrition classes and exercise classes has resulted in the fact that we have earned about $5 million more for our insurance tax fund, our insurance reserve fund, I'm sorry. So it not only makes for better performance, less absenteeism, less presenteeism, and presenteeism, in case you don't know, is when people come to work and they're not feeling good and they are just not really worth a darn. So I think that we are on the right track, and I also attended the task force for our student wellness, and they are working on a policy to include children in our wellness policy. And for several years, I've worked with the School Health Advisory Committee. And for the last 4 years that I've been on the board, they've been making recommendations to this board. And they asked what's happening with the recommendations. They've made presentations, and so I promised them that tonight I will not read this whole big report, but that I would read the conclusion of it so that my fellow board members will hear it. And it all fits together. It all fits together. The following are the recommendations of the School Health Advisory Committee to the School Board of the Lee County School District. Adoption of a policy by the Lee County School District for required instruction in comprehensive health education, which includes but is not limited to a comprehensive health education course requirement for students grades 6 through 12. A comprehensive health education progression plan for elementary students. Instruction of comprehensive health education curriculum should be provided by certified health education teachers at the secondary level. Second recommendation is create an action plan including a timeline for the implementation of said plan, complying with the Florida statutes regarding comprehensive health education, inclusive of input from certified comprehensive health education specialists. It is our sincere hope that the school district can work to develop a policy that will become a leading model to other districts in Florida, as we have been in the past. The School Health Advisory Committee will not be satisfied by the bare minimum of instruction in comprehensive health education. We hope that the Lee County School District will do what is in the best interest of the students of Lee County today and for their futures. And it's signed by Dr. Stan Wiggins and Marakita Anderson, co-chairman. And they will continue to fight the fight. The members of the School Health Advisory Committee include members from our health services, from the health department, from the local hospitals, Children's Hospital. So they see on a daily basis the results of not having comprehensive health education K through 12 in this district. It's one of the reasons that we are targeted by the CDC and the Florida Department of Health as a district at risk. So I just want to leave you with that thought. Along those lines also, the Drug-Free Coalition will be having their prevention run at Lakes Park on Saturday beginning at 8:30 in the morning, and you can still register up till Thursday the 9th. Okay. I had a visit to the Alva School and spent about 4 hours there, and I want to compliment the principal and the staff and the students. What a wonderful culture they have for learning and setting kids up for success. I was really impressed, and in fact, talked to Dr. Graham today about how happy she will be when she makes her visit there. I don't want to be redundant. You know, we've talked about the testing. My thing still is let's have assessments. let's progress monitor, but let's decrease the number of tests, let's decrease the length of those tests, and let's use some common sense and do what's best for our kids and our teachers. Regarding the sales tax, it's been about 10 years since sales tax went to referendum in Lee County. And we have had an offer from the NEA to give us support in advocating and educating the public. So I would like to request that we revisit, and we've had talk about sales tax before, and Dr. Desamore has given us some presentations showing us that the best thing is the sales tax. We're not borrowing, we're not paying interest, and many districts around the state of Florida have gotten rid of their debt. We have a tremendous amount of debt, and if we can make upwards of $40 million a year by people paying a half penny more on sales tax, and we have one of the lowest in the state, I think that we really need to consider that. So I'd like to request that we revisit that we take the NEA up on their offer to educate the public, and that we look at the possibility of bringing it up for a referendum next go-around, because I know it's too late for this year. Let me see. Substitute teachers. I don't know that we could run our district without them. And I think at one time Mr. Getz stood up here and gave us the number of substitute teachers who on any given day are holding down the fort in our classrooms. So my next request would be, if there is any way to look at the possibility of increasing their daily rate, even by a little bit, to show them that we do value them and that they do exactly what needs to be done when our teachers, for one reason or another, can't be there. So that's number 2. And lastly, Mrs. Morgan, thank you for your leadership these past couple of months. And as you carry forward the duties of the chair, I'm happy to assist you. And thank you, Mr. Armstrong, for your creative poetry and for your remembrance of Mr. Scott. He will be missed, for sure. This district belongs to our community, and we are elected to represent the community. We are going to continue to do the best we can for the children in this community. And, you know, Mrs. Dozier, when you started talking about the Salvation Army and the situation that many of our kids come to school from every day, it struck a nerve with me, because as a former school counselor, I saw what kids came to school with. And I see Vonnie back there shaking her head because she knows too. And we have to use common sense. You know, we have to educate the whole entire child, and we have to make sure, before anything else, that their basic needs are met. And if their families, for one reason or another, are unable to do that, then the responsibility is ours. We are responsible for all the children, even the ones who are born in places we wouldn't be caught dead. And so I hope that we will continue to work together as a community to raise our children to be healthy, productive citizens who learn to love learning and become lifelong learners. And with that, I think that's it.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Ware is not here, but I got to go to the leadership induction at James Stevens International Academy, which was their first leadership academy induction. And it was a great ceremony. It was a very serious ceremony. The kids were required to sign a document stating that they would pursue academic excellence, that they would be good citizens, that they would have good character, they would make good choices. And this was emphasized repeatedly during the ceremony that was conducted to induct them. And what were there, 30 children?
60 were, I think 60 applied, 36 were inducted.
Yeah, it was an impressive group. So that changes are being, things are happening at James Stephens. More will continue to happen. That's just one baby step, and I was glad to see it and be a part of it. I also got to go to the Dunbar High School Business Advisory Committee meeting, and it was hosted by the students who are business students at Dunbar. And I had not been to the new Dunbar. I had not seen the new rooms where these kids collaborate on their projects. They have individual computers at a circular workstation. And then they have one big computer at the end of the workstation, so kids can work individually, but they can also collaborate and see what each other is doing and make suggestions. It was just, that is a 21st century environment, and it was great to see it. And the kids were nervous because they had been told to come up and introduce themselves and to ask us questions and pretend just like it was a work situation, and they were nervous. And then as soon as they started talking to people, it was just fine. And by the end of the meeting, we were sitting, I think there were probably 6 or 7 tables, and there were 2 adults at each table, and the kids circulated among the tables. We all got to hear their stories, why they were doing what they were doing, why they selected Dunbar, why they liked Dunbar, what their plans were, and they got to ask us questions about, why we were there, what we were doing. So that was just terrific, and kudos to them. That was a great experience for me. Let's see. Some of the suggestions made tonight, Dr. Graham, made me think about the action plans for our strategic plan, because so many of the suggestions that are coming forward are things that I think will fall within the strategic plan. And a lot of those things also talk about partnerships and using the community to support some of our initiatives, because some of what we're trying to do really does involve the whole community. So where do we stand on the action plans?
The Cabinet had a conference call last week with UPD consultants because the action steps are next. We'd gone through a process based on the work of the work groups prior to the approval of the plan and prioritized which objectives we would go after first. We're going to get to all of them, but we would go after first. They have taken that information and are now putting it together. I think we can bring a timeline, Denise, of what's next. But the work has begun as far as first we had to prioritize where we're going to go first, so it's coming. And I think, as you said, people will start to see the connections very quickly. So I will bring that timeline to you at the next meeting.
Good. Okay, thank you. And Mr. Armstrong, did you get to attend the instructional calendar meeting? No. Okay. Is that group still meeting? Yes. Yes.
That was their first meeting, wasn't it? Yeah, they've only had one meeting.
Okay. Okay. I just have some questions for board members. Apropos of Mrs. Fisher's comment about let's be talking about income and how we're going to generate income. I think it's time we talk about scheduling meetings with the legislative delegation and the Board of County Commissioners to talk about revenue at the state level and to talk about impact fees at the local level. We've talked about having joint meetings. I think I'm looking for you guys to say it's time to go ahead and contact the delegation and contact the county commission and say we want to set up a joint meeting. People are comfortable with that? Okay. Mrs. Dozier?
Well, first of all, I'd like to know what kind of meeting you're talking about with the delegation.
I would just assume that we're sitting here with a delegation and we have an agenda. We give them the agenda. We tell them that the agenda is about funding, it's about assessments, it's essentially bringing them up to date, having a conversation with them about what our priorities are, what the consortium's priorities are, because I know that individually we are expected to and should be meeting with our legislators, but I think it helps if we're sitting together at a table and we're talking as a board and not talking individually about what our goals are.
And I will tell you, let me give you some history.
Okay.
We would go to a lot of trouble to arrange to have what we used to call a legislative day. And I mean, I'm talking about a lot of trouble. We'd go to a couple of schools. We'd start with a reception in the morning, and then we'd go do a couple of tours, and then we'd have a roundtable discussion, deliver the platform. However, we were lucky if we got one, real lucky if we got two of our delegation members there. And I mean, I can remember one year, and this was when I was doing the legislative stuff, and so we kind of stopped doing that because, for instance, I know that there was an attempt to get all of our legislative delegation to the meeting tonight, or get them at our briefing today, excuse me. Because of the different and I'm not making excuses for them, but because of the different committees they serve on, because of their scheduling and all of that, to get all of them here together at one time is almost next to impossible. We already have a meeting where they have their town hall meeting where we deliver our platform, and that is either in November or December, depending on when the chairman of the committee does it. We also go up and have legislative days on the Hill where we talk to them one-on-one. I would just be very reluctant to try to plan something because I know from past experiences you don't get the bulk of the legislative members here, but instead you get their aides. Yeah, and that is something that was addressed in the letter that was sent to them. And so I know from past experience, and I've had face-to-face discussions with, why don't y'all show up? And it's not because they don't want to, but it's because, like, they might have a committee, this group might have a committee meeting, because once they're elected, meetings start immediately. And right now, we don't even know who all is going to be elected. So the best thing for us to do as far as legislatively, and that is to go meet one-on-one with these individuals. I mean, and as far as our county commission, we used to have regular meetings with the county commission.
Okay, well, I'll give that a shot. And then I agree that with Mrs. Fisher that we need to, and I think I've addressed this to you also, Dr. Graham, we need to have a briefing talking about income, talking about the sales tax. I think perhaps in November. Does that work into your, somewhere in there?
What do you want to know? I mean, you want us to bring back the information we brought before and
And I think,
restart the conversation.
and I'm hoping at that point the board has more information about what sort of support we can get from NEA. Mr. Fox may have some information about a task force. I know that the Finance Advisory Committee is taking up this at its next meeting. So it would just be an opportunity for everybody who's been working whatever to come together and give us a presentation. Let's see. Mr. Martin has contacted local municipalities regarding potential zoning restrictions for establishments dispensing medical marijuana. They are eager to have recommendations from us. Do we want to ask him to draft something akin to, probably, I would suggest anyway, akin to what Bonita Springs is doing? Are we interested in drafting a letter to the various municipalities?
I would suggest a resolution. Ms. Morgan, I'll be happy to prepare that and bring it forward.
Okay, great.
And the distance being considered by Bonita Springs City Council is 1,500 feet from any school.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. We have dates for our reorganization meeting and for our training meetings. What we have not, for our first training meeting, what we have not discussed is where. If we have it at the foundation office, there's no audio or video capacity there, capability there. So if we want audio and video, we have to do it here.
Or at the county commission office. Same thing.
Yeah. However, I talked to Mr. Martin about minutes, and I've also talked to Susan Johnson and Linda Benzing about minutes for these various things that we do. And Mr. Martin has advised me that actually, by statute, the only minutes that we are obligated to keep are minutes that refer to actions when actions are taken by the board. And so I'm suggesting this because it would be conceivable for us to meet at the foundation offices with the understanding that there would be an announcement that the meetings were taking place, they were open to the public, but that we would not be holding our office staff responsible for doing transcriptions of these meetings. But it would also recognize that there would not be a video on the website for people to see what transpired. So I'm just asking for your comments about how we proceed, because we need to get these meetings posted. Yes, Mrs. Dozier.
Well, I know that we've had meetings there in the past, and we can do I know that there's not video capability over there, but there is. We have had audio over there in the past, and
doesn't work.
We've brought like tape recorders over there in the past and tape stuff. So there's no way to do just a video, an audio recording of what, pardon me?
Do we not have better equipment?
Well, I know when we have our, for instance, we have our meetings at different places, and we have this little thing that can record, and I've seen us use it here at different meetings. I don't know why we can't use that as a, and then at least have an audio recording of the meeting.
Okay, then I think what I'll do is just ask you, Dr. Graham, to find out if there is something different that we can use for audio, and then to ask you to poll the board once you know the information so that we're in a position to advertise the meetings. And Mr. Martin?
Just to clarify, the statute does require that there be minutes of every meeting, whether or not action is taken, and those be adopted by the board. Yes, with a meeting where the board is not taking any action, those minutes can be very simple. It can be as simple as the board met and discussed these subjects.
Right. Okay, thank you. Okay, that concludes my comments for this evening. Mr. Martin.
I have none this evening, thank you.
Dr. Graham.
I just wanted to comment on a couple things you all commented on and a few others. First of all, thank you, Ms. Morgan, Ms. Dozier, Ms. Fisher, and board member-elect Ms. LaRiviere, who donned these lovely socks tonight in honor of the Ronald McDonald House, and they are. The socks cost $10, and that pays for a night at the Ronald McDonald House. And they have applied for we went to meet with them, and that's how we found out about the socks. And your feet will be famous because they'll be on the website very soon for all to see. Not on our website, but on the website for Ronald McDonald House, unless you want it on our website. At any rate, they have applied for a second Caramobile. They have one that's been very successful in Collier County, and they've applied for a second one to take care of Lee and Hendry and Glades, and it would provide dental and physicals for our students. So we're excited and hopeful that they are able to get permission to have a second one. I also want to thank Rotary. I'm a Rotarian, so I want to thank the Rotary for Dictionary Day. It was great fun, and I learned something that day watching Ms. Dozier. She had them all look up a word and then kiss their brain. I'd never seen that before. And they all knew exactly what she meant and did it, so it was really cute. But it is exciting to see. They've all got a word they want to look up. And
you asked me, how did you learn how to do that?
And I will tell you, I'm grateful for the meeting with the new major from the Salvation Army. What was interesting to me, he basically just wanted us to know right now that they serve a lot of our children. And he said, but they're looking at their own policies and procedures. They've got to change their rules because they're having more and more intact families. come and stay there, and they said their rules are such that they come and dad goes to one side of the facility and mom and the kids go to another, and they said that's just not who's coming anymore. So it was a sobering conversation, and it was a reminder that we have many families with many needs that we really may sometimes forget, but we committed to a partnership with them, and he said as soon as he figures out what he needs from us, he will let us know. And I know that counselors are probably the first, teachers and counselors are probably the first in a school sometimes to know that children have spent the night at the Salvation Army or somewhere like that. So grateful for what they do and willing to help them. So it was an interesting, sobering meeting. I also went to the Leadership Academy. They were precious. They all signed on the dotted line. There will be a poster. I call our schools that some call failing schools struggling schools, and there are multiple reasons why those schools exist. We've talked with Ms. Ware. She's given us some things she'd like us to work on, and we're doing that, and that conversation will continue. I just want to be sure, though, there's no impression that any schools are less than others, and they are being provided with the things that we believe they need to succeed, and we'll continue to be sure that happens. I was sent a message that we have been working, Mr. Hayhurst has been working with EOC on the Ebola situation, so there is some proactive work going on there so that we are kept abreast of what the Emergency Operations Center is preparing should there ever be an issue here. So that is happening. And I'm looking to see if I forgot anything. Oh, I did forward you all a copy of what was sent, the email that was sent about the testing. It was sent last week to principals to share with teachers, and I think the subject line was share with teachers. That was sent to all of you. I will forward to you tonight before I leave what was sent to eliminate science and social studies for now, and so you'll get that email as well. So I have tried to keep you informed, and those things are in writing, and I think you will find that what is said in those is in line with what you all voted for us to do. And finally, one other thing before finally, FADS, the Superintendent's Association, also has created a platform, and we had thought about taking out an ad actually to let the legislators and the governor know that we have some grave concerns, is what we're calling them. We have put a brief hold on that until the election so we can find out who the governor is, and then we want to work directly with that person. In the meantime, one of our superintendents, the last State Board of Education meeting was in Tampa last week, and the superintendent of Hillsborough County Schools went and spoke on behalf of the Superintendent's Association and was very clear with the board that we have concerns. We think the whole accountability system needs to be halted while it's revisited, and we outlined very clearly what those concerns are and why we think it's damaging to children. And they said, we are aware of your concerns. We take them very seriously. I think many are just in the timing, sometimes timing is everything, and I think many are in a wait-and-see pattern until the election on November 4th. So the Superintendent's Association is working hard on that, and we agreed right after the election that we would probably meet again and take some of our chief academic officers with us to get a little more specific about how we might be able to adjust what we're doing district to district. And then finally, Mr. Scott was a very, very, he was a good 1/5 of my boss. He challenged me, and he wanted to do the right thing. The last conversation I had with him, he talked mostly about that he hoped he had done some good, and that he was going to do the best he could as long as he could. And so I am sorry for his family's loss, sorry for our loss, and appreciate the service that he gave. I want to share with everyone that in lieu of flowers, the family has asked that people consider donation to Mr. Scott's memory to help area students focus on college and career readiness. And so that scholarship fund is being housed with the Foundation for Lee County Schools, and it is called the Tom Scott Memorial Scholarship. If anybody wants to send a donation to that fund, they just need to put Tom Scott Memorial Scholarship on their check in the memo section, and those donations will be gathered. And his wife wasn't sure, but she thought that she knew that character would be part of the criteria for the scholarship, and she was leaning towards someone who wanted to go into business, since that's what Mr. Scott did his entire adult life. And so that is available if people want to contribute to that. There are 2 times for visitation. The service itself will be private, but there are 2 times for visitation. One is tomorrow, Wednesday, from 3 to 5, and then Thursday from 6 to 8, and it's at Fort Myers Memorial Gardens, which is at Colonial and Summerlin. And I know there are many people that would like to express personally their condolences, and those are the 2 opportunities to do that. And with that, I thank you for the privilege to lead this district.
Thank you. The next scheduled meetings of the board, October 21st, 2014. There's a school board workshop at 2 p.m., and the school board action meeting will be at 6 p.m. At this point, having no other business to come before this body, I will entertain a motion for adjournment. Mrs. Fisher.
So moved.
Seconded. Second. By Mrs. Dozier. All in favor? Aye. Motion carries 4-0.